check a few things out here. So how is retirement?
It's awful. It's the worst thing I've ever done. Worst choice I've made in my life.
Is it terrible?
It's spectacular.
You're not bored yet?
Not quite. No, the wife has a plethora of things for me to do, and I'm slowly trying to accomplish them.
Do you ever get to the end of a honey-do list?
No, I don't think that's possible. I think that's been proven scientifically that is an infinite list.
It never stops.
No.
It never stops. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. We have Pete Knudson, 26 and a half, right?
Yeah.
Of Department of Corrections here in Dixon, Illinois. Pete, you want to introduce yourself other than that?
Hi. Yeah, like you said, I'm Pete Knudson. I 26 and a half years with the Illinois Department of Corrections here at Dixon Correctional Center, and I'm just happy as hell to be here and get a chance to talk to you today.
Yeah,
this is kind of fun.
So we've known each other for a considerable amount of time through my brother. You and my brother are tight, and the impetus of this was my brother came on the show, and we didn't really get a chance to get into his Department of Corrections, and I think it's a super interesting topic. I'm going to have a ton of questions, and so I really appreciate you coming on the show, and hopefully I don't beat you to death with the nuanced stuff. Let's kind of start from the beginning. You said when we talked prior that you were 25 years old when you went into Department of Corrections.
Correct.
And what were you doing prior to that?
I was working here in town at Rayner Garage Doors, on the line, welding track and stuff, doing work there for the company and trying to find a job in law enforcement. So I graduated from Western Illinois University in spring of '97, and at that time, the law enforcement industry, the drive was huge. Everybody was trying to get cop jobs. Quick example, DeKalb City here in Illinois, if they were hiring 3 officers, you maybe had 250 candidates lined up for those 3 spots.
It's super competitive, right?
Very competitive. And I tried to stay out of the Chicagoland area. I didn't want to get caught up in the suburb area in the city, but I did pretty much test from Green Bay down to Springfield at larger departments and stuff. And the way things went was if they were hiring 2, I was number 3 or 4. If they were hiring 1, I was number, I never quite hit the line to get hired. So that was, at that time, the story of my life was, so close. And I never quite made it. So I graduated from Western. I had worked at Rayner all my summers during college on summer breaks, and they hired me on full time while I was attempting to get a job. And they were very generous with allowing me time off to pursue. Like,
cool.
If I got a test date on Thursday, and they would just say, Psh, go. They were
nice of them.
Very, very. So that was a good thing to have on my side, was them allowing me to do that.
Well, what was the drive towards law enforcement at the time? Was it a family thing? Did you have where was the influence coming from?
Not a family thing. To touch on that, I actually started as a computer science major with 0 computer experience or knowledge and stuff. I just remember kind of the conversation with my mom, what do I want to do? And she's like, well, there's always money in computers. Computers are the thing. And I kind of got started that first semester, and this was at Southern Illinois University. And I just remember, the first class I took, they give you the spiel like, hey, this is geared for people with 0 experience in computers. This is ground level. This is, we're going to walk you through. We're going to hold your hand and start. Bullshit. It was a rocket ride straight. I was gone, and I was still on the ground.
Slow
going,
down, please.
Where'd everybody go? And so I found out within a couple weeks this isn't for me. And so I dropped that, and I changed my major to criminal justice down there at Southern. So, and at the time also, I was an Air Force ROTC scholarship recipient, so I was participating in the Air Force ROTC program at the time, which, being at one of the top 10 party schools in the nation in the early 90s, was kind of a tough row to hoe there, and didn't quite make the cut. I got to the 2-year committal mark where you start signing on the dotted line and being a member of a fraternity and everything. And the whole SIU culture at the time was, I don't know if this is for me.
I get it.
And so I didn't. And, you kick yourself every day, thinking, oh my God, I could have, had this, but nah, it wasn't suiting me at the time, and I just a different direction. So I lived the frat life.
Yep.
Pretty hard.
I would have too.
Really hard. Yeah. And Southern Illinois University asked me to leave.
Yeah.
They said, enough's enough. You can go. So came back home with my tail between my legs and had to listen to my parents and their disappointment for a while. And then cleaned up my GPA at Old Sauk Valley Community College out here, the Harvard on the Highway.
That's right.
And then I went to Western Illinois, and I found that if you go to class and you do what they ask you to do,
it's bizarre.
By God, you can get some shit done.
Yeah,
so I graduated with a degree from Western with Law Enforcement and Justice Administration, along with about what seemed like 50,000 other dudes. So,
it was still that competitive. Like even with the degree, it was still that
very, very competitive. And now we were starting to get into the time too, where departments were requiring a degree. The state police already required one, and more larger departments required a degree. It was very competitive.
Was there requirements for DOC as well, or did you just happen? I mean, was it your degree that got you into the DOC when the
degree was definitely a big helper in scoring points and stuff. You had to have a high school diploma to get into IDOC, but the degree helped.
Has that changed? Is that still the same?
I believe so. I believe it's still just a high school diploma, but you get additional points for college credits. You get so many for an associate's, and you get so many more for a bachelor's.
So you're 25 years old. You had said that they were the first person, or they were the first organization to call, right? So IDOC was the first organization to call.
And to touch on that, my wife's parents, a very good friend of theirs, Kay Farley, was the major secretary at Dixon. And we were talking at an event one evening, and basically it come down to, have you applied at the prison? No. Get over yourself. Apply at the prison. We are hiring. We could use you. Okay. Because that, I wanted to be a cop, and then, I was like, okay, I need to get out of Rainer. I need to start utilizing my degree. I need to start doing something. So I applied. They called. I was hired.
That's easy day, right?
And there we go. So,
well, you said the academy was 6 weeks long?
Correct, 6 weeks.
So let's unpack that, because I'm genuinely interested in and I'll let you explain it. Like, where was the academy at? Where did they hold it at?
It was down in Springfield.
Okay.
It was an old college campus, had a traditional quad and buildings surrounding it and everything, and that was it. It was in the middle of a really beautiful neighborhood in Springfield, where you could witness drug deals taking place down the road and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was
on-the-job training.
It was you could see the element at work while you were there.
No shit.
And on top of being public property, the residents could cut right through the middle of campus at any time. If they're walking down to the Quickie Mart or whatever, you could be out there in formation marching or something, and then here come some fellas just walking through the middle of campus.
It's bizarre.
Yeah, you couldn't do anything. They just let them go.
You're right. You're almost a spectacle of the entertainment at that point.
When we had chemical agent training further on down the line, back by one of the garages where he got sprayed and everything, and there would be times where the neighbors would all be out on the porch.
Oh, sure.
Doing this, like, look at him, he's crying. All that stuff. So.
Yeah, I would watch too. I'd watch right now.
Oh, it's so awesome.
Yeah. What is so take me through what does a day of training look like in the academy? Was it like based in blocks? Like when you told me that there was a ton of like ceremonial drill and marching, I was like, why? Was it just the discipline aspect of it, or?
When I came on, we just had a new director come on. His name was Donald Snyder. And Don Snyder wanted to, I don't know if I want to use the term militarize, but paramilitary really get the academy squared away.
It's like boot camp-esque.
Yes, I mean, we had, the campaign hats on, the DI type stuff, and the bus pulls up and they do the yelling and screaming and all that. And my favorite part too was a lot of the guys I got hired in with, guys that had been through Desert Storm and all that, a lot of, service in the Middle East.
A lot of vets.
And yes, and so when they're on the bus and they come off, and then you've got IDOC staff trying to, put on the show, and they're sitting there, they're biting their lips and trying not to laugh.
Yeah, it falls flat it falls flat the second time.
But the people who'd never been through anything
100%.
were just pissing down their leg, which was great. But I think it was a well-run academy for what we had going on at the time. It was. So you had your first morning, your first day of all that, and then, it was get up in the morning, go march, this, that, and the other. And as the weeks progressed, they started a new class every 3 weeks.
Okay.
So by the time I'm hitting week 3, a new class is arriving, and so I'm at my halfway point, they're starting. They're ramping up the intensity with every class. So by the time I got done, this next class is moving into their second phase. The next class is coming in, and now they're adding PT. So they're taking them out, they're PTing them in the morning, they're running them, they're doing all this. So every class got progressively more aggressive, more boot camp-esque. So they were really trying to do something there. And then it got to the point where they were yanking cadets out of their bunks at 4 a.m. and doing all kinds of just wild stuff.
Yeah,
and
right.
then finally the hand came down and slapped them and said, hey, you got to knock this shit off. It's too much.
It always seems to happen like that, right? Like, hey, we're going to come, and especially if the directive comes down from higher and says, hey, we need to tighten the screws or whatever. You don't know you don't know what's too far until you go too far, and then you got to ratchet it back a little bit or whatever. Yeah, that's so for 6 weeks, I still like. Did you ever find it, and I'm skipping ahead a little bit here, did you ever find the drill and ceremony portions of the academy implemented once you were in IDOC? Did you guys ever have any
The only thing it was, just to, instill some discipline, some order, and some standard. But then it was all for the graduation ceremony.
Oh, right. Of course.
They just wanted to march us in, make us look really good,
Badass.
And all that stuff. So, after that, it's over with.
And what was the curriculum like? Was there, what was it difficult? Was the curriculum, did you have to study?
You had to an extent, but it wasn't all that bad. Lots of administrative directives, departmental rules, use of force, then the firearms training. At one point, especially now we're still in the 90s, the gang culture was extraordinarily prevalent still, so we had gang education for that. And then, just some other basic stuff. The majority of the things you learn, though, the stuff you actually applied in your day-to-day was when you got to your facility and started working. Then you got this sense of, the basic, this is kind of all encompassing. Now, when you get to the facility, now you're working and you're applying, and then it becomes more specific, more refined, and then that's where the real education took place.
Sure, it's kind of like every circus has its own act, right? Like,
Correct.
so here's kind of the broad stroke overview, and then where you go, now you're going to learn how we do it here.
Correct. We do this at Dixon. We don't do this at Stateville, or we do this at Pontiac. Just whatever procedure it may be, it's adapted and tweaked to the needs of that facility.
Okay, cool. That's very interesting. And what was the firearms training like?
It was great. We still had the .38 revolver.
It's badass.
Which we just recently, I think, I want to say in the past 2 years, transitioned the department completely to the Glock. But up until then, it was the .38 and the Ruger Mini 14.
Sweet, yeah, badass.
And that was the extent of it. And the course of fire, not too difficult. It's geared towards getting people, because a lot of our people don't have firearms experience whatsoever. And it's just getting them acclimated to it, being able to be somewhat proficient in it. And unfortunately, I wish the department would invest more in it because you qualify once a year.
Mm-hmm.
A department employee, a regular line staff person, only handles that firearm once a year on the range. They'll carry it when they transport somebody, whether it be court or an outside hospital detail, transfer or something like that. But for the most part, that weapon is fired once a year.
Yeah, that was going to be my next real, kind of elementary question is like, at what point are you armed? And of course, I'm thinking, okay, it's when they transfer and back and forth. I'm trying not to make any assumptions, right? Is that's accurate? Other than like, when else would someone be armed inside the facility?
Inside the facility would just be the maximum security units.
Okay.
Dixon does not have any posts that are armed inside. Pontiac, former Stateville, Menard, I'm sure Lawrence.
And these are all facilities inside Illinois.
Designated maximum security. Yeah.
Okay.
And they have catwalk officers, they have interior tower officers that are armed, yards, stuff like that. But for like Dixon, on grounds, our perimeter towers are armed, and our roving outer patrol officer is armed.
Okay.
So, and then other than that, no one else is armed within the facility. And then anybody that transports once you leave grounds is armed. That
makes sense. And obviously it makes total sense to be unarmed while you're in, kind of the in amongst, right? In amongst, because you got a better chance of losing it than using it, right?
Oh, you bet.
Well, take me through that first day. How long after graduation from the academy before you're stepping foot through Dixon? Was there like OJT? Was there any part of the academy where they had like mock prison setups, or did you go, you know what I mean? Hopefully I'm articulating that question correctly. Like, right? Does that make sense?
At the academy, they had a couple mock cells put together, and that was for training for searches and stuff, the proper method for searching, front to back, top to bottom, just being methodical in your search. So you have that at the academy. At one point during the academy, you are transported to preferably one of the maximum security facilities for a shakedown. Your entire class gets on the buses. For me, it was get on the bus at 3, 4 a.m., and we went to Pontiac, and we shook down up there. We searched a couple galleries worth of cells.
What was that like that first time? What was that? Be honest.
It was cool. Pontiac was a stop on the way to the academy for us. I got in a van at Dixon. We went to Sheridan Correctional Center over there by Ottawa in LaSalle County. We picked up some people there, got on a bus, and we went to Pontiac, and we picked up Pontiac's cadets and then went to Springfield. Every morning on Monday, for some reason, and this is in January and stuff, it was foggy and just daylight hadn't quite broken all that well yet. And we pull up into the parking lot of Pontiac, and you see East-West House in the fog, and it is your TV, your movie,
ominous
cell house. Yeah. And I'm looking at that like, God damn,
this looks dark.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And so I was like, hey, we're going to Pontiac. I'm like, whew. So, of course you're nervous, and this and that. Cool story or cool snippet on the way into Pontiac as we go to the roll call room, we get our briefing of what we're going to do, what cell house, what gallery we're going to hit, this and that. And then we make our way in a line to the cell house. And the girl behind me, unbeknownst to me at the time, was several weeks pregnant or whatever. We're about 5 yards from the entrance of the cell house, and she barfs. I mean, she's got the nerves, she's got the morning sickness, and she blew up the back of my left shoe.
No way.
On the way in the door. I'm like, oh, come on. I'm feeling, I'm nerved up bad enough, but. And then, you get in there, you hit the stairs, you hit the galleries, and you get in front of your cell, and you start giving these guys orders to submit to restraints and strip search. And
do they, and now, like, so that's the first time, right? And so here's what goes through my head. That's the first time. Do you think, or do you know, now having 26 plus years of experience, like, did they pick the most cooperative, nicest dude for you guys, or did they pick the worst guy? Or does that make sense? Was he cooperative?
Yeah, and I come to find out later, the gallery we were on was a protective custody gallery.
So what does that mean?
These guys have whatever issues, say with gangs, with the fear for their safety or whatever, they ask for protective custody.
Okay.
And then that population is isolated in a sense from the rest of the general population, just keep them away from the gang stuff and all that. With that being said, the protective custody guys are just as bad as the others. They're just a lot of them had legitimate reasons for being there, whether they'd been assaulted, owed money, something like that. Whatever reasons, many of them were legitimate. Others, they would get themselves into PC to get closer to somebody they want to hit, or to run business in PC. So just because someone's in PC doesn't mean that they're cool, they're okay, and they're going to be good and safe. They're just as bad as everyone else,
Right.
And anybody at any time in those places can go that direction. So you still had to keep that in mind, that just because it's PC, they're not going to be cool, they're not going to be cooperative. So
that's fascinating.
Yeah.
I definitely want to get into all that, because I think it's incredibly intriguing how human beings, even in that kind of situation and scenario, can find a way, or a way to manipulate the system to get what they want or need or what have you. I find it incredibly fascinating, right?
And the guys we have, in the system, and all systems around the country, they're the best of the best at manipulating situations, manipulating people, manipulating their environment to get their needs fulfilled, whatever it may be. It's bar none some of the best.
I'm sure you have endless stories. Endless stories. Well, that first shakedown, like how long does something like that take?
Well, depending how thorough you are and how well you do your job, it can take a couple hours. You got to kind of remember that you have I always call it an 8x10. Some cells are a lot smaller. Some you can put arms on and touch both sides. Or I always just call it an 8x10. You have an 8x10 a lot of times with two guys, and their entire lives are right there. And you have to go through their entire life, all their property, all their stuff, all the things they do to hide things and what they do. You check integrity of walls, integrity of doors, bars, all that stuff. It's if you do it correctly, it's time consuming.
I would imagine.
Yeah, it's not, hey, 5 minutes, hey, I searched the cell, it's good. No, it takes some time. I'm sure this is an incredibly novice question, but that's why we're here. What are they allowed to have, right? Having never been incarcerated myself, right? Thankfully, knock on wood. What are they allowed to have inside the cells? I'll take you back just a second here to
Please.
where I started, and the I guess that golden age of corrections we spoke about at the beginning when I got hired.
Oh,
in.
yes.
So in late 96, 97, the Richard Speck tapes came out, got released. I believe looking it up is somewhere around 88 or something like that. Richard Speck, mass murderer that was incarcerated at Stateville, and some of his cronies got hold of a video camera recorder, whether it be through the Leisure Time Specialties Department or whatever. I'm not sure, but they had
Just like the prison hobby shop, for lack of a better
they had
term.
a camcorder.
Okay.
And they filmed themselves somewhere in Stateville. I'm not sure where, but somewhere in Stateville, doing drugs. Richard Speck, snorting white powder, engaging in sexual acts with another inmate, all this stuff, just free, with no presence of IDOC staff anywhere. They are just living their, as the kids say, living their best life.
Yeah, I think we said it's like the prison version of Jackass.
Yes, it was prison Jackass right there. And those tapes got released somehow. I can't remember if it was Bill Curtis or who it was that let it be known what happened, and talk about an extraordinary embarrassment and slap in the face to the state of Illinois.
Holy shit.
The governor's office, the legislature, the Department of Corrections.
Not good.
And basically after that was get our department back, get control of that department. And it was at that time, late 90s, became foot to throat. It was, we're going to have you toe the line. Prior to that, inmates could wear civilian clothing.
Really?
Yeah. So if mom wants to send you in the newest sweatshirt or whatever, you can wear it. So there was, and this was prior to me working, so I can't speak firsthand about it, but story was, there were times where you couldn't tell staff from inmate.
I would assume.
It was a very difficult thing. And so they standardized and uniformed all the inmates. Everybody got state blues, a light blue button-up shirt, dark blue pants. Started with that. There were no restrictions on property. So guys from the 80s on and stuff, everything they owned, they kept. It's a traditionally kind of a pack rat situation. I never know when I'll need this later.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Right?
Every letter that's ever written, every photo, every wrapper from a bag of tortillas or something, they kept.
Mm-hmm.
So you had cells, your 8x10, packed floor to ceiling, side to side with cardboard boxes.
No shit.
With stuff, and maybe you could squeeze between to get on your rack. And so now imagine searching that mess. Well, after that, and after the take back began, we went to property boxes. You have a large property box, and then you have a smaller box for your correspondence. So your large property box has to fit all of your clothing, all of your commissary items, your Zoom Zooms, Wham Wham, Snickers bars, ramen noodles, all that stuff. And whatever else. And then your correspondence box was meant for your letters, your magazines, your legal paperwork, all that. And then we had a small list of items that could be left out in the cell. Your TV, your hygiene items, a bag of dirty laundry, stuff like that. And it was a very, like 6 to 8 items. These are the items you are authorized to leave out. And so then we clean the clutter out of the cells, we clean the clutter out of the area, and it became more manageable, in theory, to search, to interdict contraband, stuff like that. So when it comes down to what they can have now, you can have X amount of pairs of socks, X amount of pairs of underwear, T-shirts, pants, shoes. You can have so many commissary items. You can have, for 2 bags of chips, 15 things of tuna, stuff like that. We do have limits for property they can have, and then everything else that's beyond that is considered excess property, and it's subject to being confiscated during a cell search or a property compliance check. Pardon me. So, and then anything that's above and beyond, we will take it from them, and then they have to decide, what do I do with it? Do I have them throw it away? Do I have them send it home? Whatever.
Really? And so it's so interesting. So other than the movies that I've seen, and I won't be cliche, like I have this movie playing in my head, right? What constitutes or what initiates a cell search? I'm sure at times they're random, just to keep them on their toes, or kind of take me through or unpack, what would constitute, hey, we're gonna toss this guy's cell today.
Well, for the most part, the most basic is you have your daily random cell search.
Okay.
Every cell house gets assigned a random, because there's a standard for how many times during the month a cell needs to be searched for your normal population guys. And so you've got, basically you're going to start your day and a sergeant's going to call you and tell you, hey, you need to shake down cell 42 today. They just have a chart and it's random. They just pick out cell 42. Or it's, I'm not a big fan of Joe in 27. You're going to shake down 27 today. Random.
Yeah.
But it's you have a random search. And that's the bulk of it. And then we have, something may come up that's suspicious. Someone, guys get hooch, guys have drugs or whatever, overdose on medication, guys that aren't acting right. Something will trip, suspicious behavior, and they will be like, hey, so-and-so's not acting right. He was acting funny in the chow hall. Go search his cell, please. And he kind of a probable cause maybe, or whatever term. And then after that, too, we also have our Intel and IA guys have targeted cell searches. Hey, we've got information so-and-so might be moving this. So-and-so supposedly has a weapon. And then they'll send people to go search that cell.
That brings up a very interesting question, because I was going to ask, like, what kind of internal intelligence collection apparatus does the prison have? Like, is it all like, are they using human tactics where they're interviewing prisoners, or like, where are they getting their information other than like watching the, CCTVs or whatever, the surveillance, audio and visual surveillance? Like, are prisoners coming and snitching, for lack of a better term? Like, how robust is that intelligence apparatus?
There's a lot of people that like to talk to curry favor.
I'm sure.
So yeah, I think that's a lot of it. Yeah.
That's a dangerous game to play, right?
Well, for them, yes.
Right.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like, can you even, like, I want to say, what's the craziest shit you've ever pulled out of somebody's cell? Can you even pick, I bet you know what I mean?
I know that one that just kind of floored me was we go to do some targeted cell searches, and usually we get 3 cells is what we would do. We have a 6-man ERT team, emergency response team.
Okay.
At the time, I was a security specialist for the facility at Dixon.
Okay.
And then so Intel and IA would say, hey, we have 3 cells we'd like to hit. Could you take ERT and go do that? And with our numbers, we kind of managed 3 cells safely, because we would have 2 officers on 1 cell. And, since not everything goes smooth and candy-like, they go sideways, at least you have better numbers. You're not trying to manage 4, 5, 6 cells or whatever. So we kind of keep it to 3. So this particular day, we're doing our 3 cells, and we find hooch. And
booze.
Yes. Homemade intoxicant is what they like to, their official term. But yeah. The homemade stuff. So we find some hidden in the ceiling. Backtrack really quick. Dixon Correctional Center was never built as a prison. It was I'm trying to find the proper term for it, but it was for the mentally handicapped when it was built.
Okay.
So you have clusters of 4 buildings that were basically open bay dorms, and
I never knew that. That's very interesting.
It was called the Dixon State School.
Okay.
I wish I could use proper terminology for what some of them were experienced, but you had the mildly retarded, the severely retarded. Was it the hydrocephalic, the waterhead? Stuff like back in I think the place was constructed in the 30s. Don't quote me on that, but back from that time going on, families couldn't handle that, and so. Hey, my child is this, and off they went to the Dixon State School. And I believe there was another one by Springfield, I think in Lincoln. But
get the proper care, the proper treatment.
Right. At least something than just languishing in a house. So the Illinois Department of Corrections took over the Dixon State School in the mid-'80s and converted it. So basically you're take a pitchfork-shaped building, 3 wings, that's just open bays. It's just an entire open, like a hangar almost. And then you build hallways, you build cells, and you convert the entire building. And we did drywall ceilings.
Oh, yeah.
So we have cinder block walls, cinder block everything, steel doors, this, that, and the other.
Massive weak point.
And we have drywall ceilings. So it wasn't as prevalent. I mean, it's always been prevalent, but in the past recent years, the amount of access and traffic into those ceilings is extraordinary. So that becomes an important part of your search if you're in there, we have what's called count lights. So you would have like your regular lighting here, and then in the middle of the night, the officer, on the 11/7 shift can turn on the count light. So it's just a very small dim light, just enough to illuminate the cell that, hey, I've got bodies in the beds here at count time or during a hall check. So these count lights, though, are just kind of these cruddy can lights that you could pull down out of the ceiling.
Wow.
And with a little bit of work and a little bit of effort, which these guys have all the time in the world to do.
Correct.
Can bring that light down and they can stow stuff in there. Well, they got into an even better mindset where they could remove the entire large light and take themselves up in the ceiling.
And go.
And now you have a hooch factory because all your heating ducts, all that stuff's up there. So this particular day, we are on these 3 cells, and hey, there's hooch up here. So, and we have my buddy Nate. He's the guy that's followed me as a security specialist there at Dixon, and the guy is just an incredible go-getter. He's a badger, is what he is. His little ass wants to do work nonstop, and it was always like, Nate up in the ceiling, Nate get up in the attic, and
prison tunnel rat.
Yes,
yeah,
and hey, I got the hooch. Go down 4 more. So he's up top now. Go down 4 more cells, get those guys out. Boom, there's hooch there. Boom, there's hooch there. This cell house yielded, don't quote me on the numbers, but I want to say between 30 to 50 gallons of hooch or hooch in process.
Unreal.
Up in the ceilings.
Unreal.
So, I mean, it was mind-blowing that much stuff had accumulated up there.
Yeah, they just you broke it like a crawl space, hooch factory.
Yeah.
They're just up there, oh my God.
Yeah. So that was a heck of a day. The shift commander and the bosses and stuff were not pleased because it was towards the end of the day too, and all this reporting has to be done.
Holy shit. Well, what did they make it out of? What did they make the hooch out of?
You name it. They make, if fresh fruit obviously is like the big go-to.
Okay.
We tried to keep fresh fruit to a minimum, and it's served in the chow halls. And then, it's kind of monitored. You would, as a chow line was exiting the chow hall, you'd be patting them down. If you served oranges at lunch, you're patting guys down and you're taking the oranges out of their pockets or whatever. Here comes COVID, where we're not running guys to the chow hall. We're feeding the guys in cells and this and that.
Okay.
And we still provide fresh fruit on the trays. We are still now hand delivering fresh fruit to the cell houses without that search factor when the meal is over.
They're going to exploit that immediately.
Immediately.
I don't blame them.
So yeah, that was kind of a big explosion in the hooch manufacturing at the joints all around the state. So yeah,
it's such an incredible visual to think about. Just above the prison cell, they're up there basically making booze, and wow, yeah that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's I can't. I have no words for it. It's
oh my gosh,
it hurts the head. Just to start out with drywall ceilings,
right? So, yeah. And how did you become, you use the term security specialist, so how, rewind all the way back, we, kind of went from day one, how long, what is an average, let's just say you work 08 to, or 8 o'clock until when? Is it 8-hour shift? It's a 12-hour shift?
7 to 3.
Okay, so 7 to 3. Take me through what a 7 to 3 shift looks like, just standard run-of-the-mill T-Day 1 guy.
Roll call starts at 6:45.
Okay.
Our union makes sure we gets paid 15 minutes overtime for that, having to stand roll call or get it in comp time to use later. And then during roll call, there's training topics discussed. There's topics of interest. Hey, be on the lookout for this. Hey, we're just whatever general information needs briefing to be got out to the staff. And then after that, shift commander up at the podium is assigning posts. Tower 1, Tower 2, Tower 3, cell house 1, floor officer, all that stuff. And everybody gets their assignment, and they disperse out into the camp, relieve the officers that are currently on post, and start their day.
Is it ever the same posting twice? Would you ever get, say, tower duty 2 days in a row?
Oh, yeah.
Or, yeah.
So you have what is a 5-day assignment. So if I work, my work week is Monday through Friday, and I have Saturday, Sunday off. If I have Tower 1 as my 5-day, I go to Tower 1 every day, Monday through Friday.
Brutal.
It can be. Depends on the post, yes. One nice thing about a 5-day assignment is consistency. You know where you're going every day. You can prepare for, okay, I know I'm going to need meals, or I'm going to need, waters, or I have to prepare myself somehow for this. So I know what I'm doing every day, which is nice, but it's kind of mundane. I know every day I'm going to Tower 1. Whereas you have also relief officers that will cover the 5-day officers' days off. So you may have a guy that works, me being off Saturday, Sunday, somebody's got to cover that tower on Saturday, Sunday. So someone's going to cover Tower 1 on Saturday, Sunday. And then maybe Monday, Tuesday, they'll have Tower 2, and so on and so forth. So that's a relief officer. They have certain posts that at least each day they know they're going to be, covering the days off for someone else. And then you have transportation officers. Those guys are the ones that are the main responsibility for taking guys out on the road, court, doctor's appointments, stuff like that. And then you have general relief. You're considered open. Joe Smith called off. He works 26 control or whatever. You're going to get that post. So someone who's open has no idea what they're walking into every day.
Okay, that makes sense. So, and then you use the example 26 control. Like, what is that?
That's a cell house at Dixon.
Okay,
that's just a number I threw out there. But yeah, that's,
right on. That makes sense. Well, what are those tower duty? What is it like? What's in the tower?
You've got a Mini 14, you've got a bullhorn, you've got a spotlight for nighttime, and there's a microwave and fridge. We finally got that because at first they never allowed us to bring our own meals in and stuff. You had to get.
They would bring them to you.
Either state supplied stuff or something from the commissary inside, and the department finally conceded in recent years that we could bring our own lunches and stuff, subject to search when you enter the facility. But yeah, you have in your binoculars, and that's it. And you are responsible for the 360 around your tower area. And
what kind of rules? And don't say anything that you can or shouldn't say. What are like the rules of engagement in a situation like that? Like if I'm in the tower, what kind of, for lack of a better term, rules of engagement are there to utilize what when you go from the bullhorn to the rifle, right?
Illinois law changed in recent years, and it used to be, I guess, the unwritten. We'll use Dixon as an example. Everybody's a little bit different, but for the most part, most facilities are a double fence, with the exception of some of the old max joints like Pontiac, Stateville, Menard, where they actually have a wall.
Okay.
Kind of the unwritten rule of thumb, I believe, was if they're going over the outer fence and you haven't got a response from your outer patrol yet getting to the area, that it was time to begin with warning shots and, moving to lethal force.
Okay.
Illinois law in recent years changed drastically where that's a no-no anymore. Say you're Joey the convict you're gonna leave, you're gonna go over the fence. You successfully get over the first fence, you successfully get over the second fence, and you are going to run across the field out there. There is nothing I can do as a tower officer in terms of lethal force because you are not presenting an immediate threat to life or great bodily harm to anybody around you. So you can only apply lethal force if there is an immediate threat to somebody in the immediate area. So if you're just hitting the ground running by Illinois law, and I hope I'm correct in stating this, but I believe
and report.
Yeah, it's you can still
there he goes.
Maybe a warning shot, but good luck to you. You have to be able to articulate an immediate threat to somebody. And when the law changed, and as an instructor at work there, everybody has their what ifs. What ifs?
Sure.
Well, what if he's doing this? What if he's doing that?
Sure.
And the example I like to use was your outer patrol officer responded to the area and is now engaged with this person, and he's trying to disarm him. Now you have an immediate threat to, for great bodily harm or loss of life.
An incredibly difficult shot, too, depending on it, right?
At an extraordinary distance. So, yeah, the way the Illinois laws have changed, just going lethal for someone going to the fence is you better have your ducks in a row. You have to be able to articulate and justify all your actions. And if like I said, if that guy is just hitting the ground running across an open field and there isn't a person around him, you don't have a leg to stand on to fire a shot.
And I would assume it goes without saying that the prisoners know that. They probably know the rules.
They know the laws better than we do.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's almost like, what kind of deterrent is that?
Yeah.
Why is it even there?
Yeah.
I don't know. Which is what begs the question. I can remember hearing stories when my brother was at the DOC, and just every statement generated another question. Like, I didn't understand why, and it's one of those things, I'm sure, where unless you've done it, which is why I'm so thankful that you're here, right? Everything is for a reason doesn't mean it's for a good reason, right?
Yep.
Because am I right in saying that I heard at one point the M14s weren't even loaded, or did I hear some bullshit?
They are. They are supposed to be at all times.
Yeah.
Depending on the staff members up there. But yes, they are.
Holy shit. Okay.
Yeah, that's a hot weapon up there.
And not like nobody wakes up in the day and says, I hope I get to use it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm just trying to work through a scenario other than what I've seen in the movies, which is ridiculous, to base any type of reality off of. It's like, well, give me an example of when that would be used, and you did, right? That's tower duty does not sound fun at all.
Now there are the escape portion, lethal force for the escape portion, that Illinois law really kind of did something to it. But the main driver for the use of lethal force within the department and within the facilities is going to be actually inside the facility. Your yard fights, your disturbances in cell houses where great bodily harm or imminent death are going to occur. You have one inmate stabbing another inmate on the gallery there, and you're the catwalk officer. You are fully authorized to let fly. So that's the main purpose of the firearms with the facility now, is that stuff: mass disturbance, insurrection, mutiny, stuff like that.
Has there, in Dixon's history, has there ever been, I'll call it a riot, an uprising, or anything like that?
Nothing to the point that I can recall. There may have been, prior to me being hired, there may have been a couple things on the yard where we're not going in, we're not going to go back to a cell house, and it's usually resolved within a couple, nothing that you would be worthy of reading about, it's nothing like that. Stateville, Pontiac, Menard, they definitely have.
Okay.
So they've actually had no shit riots, like the Pontiac riots of '78, where multiple staff members lost their lives and stuff. And
incredible. Yeah, it's incredible. So you get your assignment to where it is that you're going. House that, correct me if I'm using the improper terminology, but house this or yard that or tower duty, right? And then what happens after that? Like, give me an example of a interior, like you have I'm going to use improper terminology, but like the X house, right? I've always heard the X house, which is, that's where take me through the X house and what a day in the X house looks like.
Well, I pretty much grew up in the X house. So that's the Dixon psychiatric unit.
Okay.
Prior to '97, the maximum security psych unit for the state was housed down in Menard. And if I remember my lore correctly, when they were to build TAMS, the Supermax that was down in Southern Illinois.
Does TAMS stand for something, or that's the name?
It's a little town.
Okay.
The town of TAMS, but that's where we were going to put a Supermax facility. If I remember correctly, they approached Dixon and asked because the land adjoining Dixon Correctional Center was suitable for building this Supermax prison. And the city of Dixon went, no, we don't want a Supermax in our town.
Okay.
Which would have, brought hundreds of jobs and all kinds of great opportunities to the town, but whatever.
I digress.
Yeah. Yeah. They went ahead and said, no, please do not build the Supermax here in Dixon. So they put that way down in Southern Illinois. And I'm not sure of the actual reasoning with Menard. The department basically said, you know what, you turned us down for TAMS. Well, we're just going to go ahead and drop the maximum security psychiatric unit for the state inside the fence at Dixon, and we're going to build the DPU, the Dixon Psych Unit. So that's what they did, and then they closed the Menard unit, moved it up to Dixon, and that's where I spent the majority of my career, was working in there.
If I'm an inmate, what gets me put into the X house? Because it is called the X house, correct?
Correct. Yeah, just the normal local term is the X house. Yeah, okay. It's a psych unit. It's people with personality disorders, severe schizophrenia, you name it. Something that a normal person on the street would be housed in a mental health institute.
Okay.
Is what they've been proven severely mentally ill, and that's where they'll reside in a maximum security facility. We do have people who are mental health inmates but don't fit the maximum security mold. Their behavior issues, their assaultive behaviors or stuff like that isn't quite as severe, and they can be housed in a mental health population area, but this is a maximum security facility.
So kind of paint the picture for the audience what that looks like. Like I'm envisioning a hallway with doors on either side, you know, and that's that visual is fed by, you know, movies and TVs, right? Like how long of a hallway, how many cells are we talking about?
Well, the building, you know, just by its name is X-shaped. You walk in between two wings and you have a central hub, your control room, which is elevated about halfway up so they can see the top deck of each wing. There's 4 wings, A, B, C, and D. And then each wing is its own separate cell house. And while you're in there, I want to say 50 cells per wing.
Okay.
And yeah, it's bottom deck all the way around, and then top deck, you'll have showers that have steel grated gates for them to utilize. You'll escort them from their cell to the shower, and they'll utilize that. At the end of the wing, one wing will have an office up and down, law library. Another wing has a kitchen and a group therapy room. And then the general population wings have like storage closets, storage areas at the end of the wing. And then it's just, an open wing with a set of stairs in the center.
And so what is the control? I want to use the term bubble, or you know, what does that bubble consist of?
That's going to have 4 computer stations that basically control what's going on each wing. They can operate the doors, they can operate the lights. And they're the central hub. That control officer has the responsibility of watching what's going on down all 4 wings.
And are there people outside? Are there correctional officers outside of the bubble at all times, like actively patrolling? And
you have an officer assigned to each wing, and then you have. It used to be a roving officer, but I believe we replace it now with a sergeant. You have escort officers that take the guys that have to go to, whether it's healthcare unit, take them out to the yard, stuff like that. And then they help with activities on the wings and stuff. And then you have the command staff, the lieutenant and the sergeant that help run the building.
Okay.
So you're going to have at least an officer for each wing, and then hopefully a support officer via an escort. And then we do have the officers that are responsible for the mental health escorts. We call them RTU officers, residential treatment unit. And anytime that a mental health staff person comes in, it's their responsibility to escort them throughout the building so they can accomplish whatever group therapy sessions, individual therapy sessions.
So they're not just locked in there 23 hours a day type thing. Like there's a fair amount of movement. Is that fair to say?
There is some. It's very controlled. It's highly controlled. But yeah, there's a little bit of movement. Prior to, it was depending where you were living at. So C and D wing were considered segregation wings. You were locked down 23-1. You were in your cell 23 hours with 1 hour recreation out on the yard each day. And then A and B wing were population, so they could come out for day room and stuff, hang out, play cards, watch TV, whatever, because they weren't a disciplinary issue. So
that's interesting. Yeah. That's I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure you have, you know, a plethora of stories. Was going to the X house an assignment, or was it something that you asked to do, or?
As a young guy that was, you know, full of, I want to prove myself and I want to be where the action is. I asked to be there. It presented the most challenges.
Because you just never knew, right? You never knew what was.
It was always something. Your day was never slow. Your day was always fast, and you know, I'm just moving. But also, it was a very good team concept out there. You had your crew that worked out there in the DPU, out in the X house, and you had each other, and that was it, because it was a very potentially explosive and violent environment. It wasn't like general population where guys plan things out and, you know, we're going to do this by doing the A, B, C, D, and E. The DPU, the X House, was more of the firecracker.
Anything can go at any time.
You know, I told you I was going to get you out to use the phone at 1 o'clock, and it's 1:10 because I got busy with something. Now I've got a fight on my hands because I told you 1 o'clock. You know,
yeah.
Explosive. And the guys housed out there exhibit very little self-control, very little impulse control. So that was a lot you dealt with.
Heavily medicated.
At times, yeah.
Yep, heavily medicated, I'm sure. Well, how many times did you get, if you even have count, like very, very, you would expect to go hands-on on a daily basis?
Fairly close, yeah. There's quite a bit. The level of control we attempt to maintain out there, it's not as bad as it had been earlier in my career. Earlier in my career, it was something every day. But now things have gotten better as far as how we control things. We've gotten to the point where just about everybody is restrained coming out of the cells just for staff safety.
Yeah, and explain that process, right, for the audience. Like a chuck hole, cuff up. Like, how does that? Is it one officer? Is it two? Like, how do you get? Walk me through the process of getting this, inmate out.
Currently, it's supposed to be two. So you have a solid steel door and it has a cuff board in it, chuck hole, whatever terminology that's. So you open that and you instruct them to place their hands out behind their back, out the cuff port. You apply the handcuffs and you maintain control. Depending what wing you're on, you can key the door open or you have to call the control officer and have them open the door for you. And then while the door opens, you have them kneel down and place leg irons on them, assist them to their feet, take them where they got to go.
Wow.
And then reverse process when you return to their cell. Bring them to the door, have them step in, kneel down, remove the leg irons. Sometimes if they're being aggressive or if they have aggressive tendencies, you'll hook the leg irons to the handcuffs as kind of a method of control. Stand them up, bring their hands out, remove the handcuffs, secure the cuff port, go about your day.
So very regimented, of course, and for a good reason. Give me an example of when that went south. Right, because there's very regimented for a reason, and then there's that kind of maybe complacency that comes along with, something that's very regimented. I've done this 1,000 times, and
that's where you see the majority of things taking place is when people don't follow the procedures, where the corner cutting, the shortcuts, stuff like that, where one person may, oh yeah, I know him, I'll just go get him by myself. Or, instead of kneeling them down, they'll allow them to stand there and raise one leg up and put a leg iron on. Just those little shortcuts. So many issues of staff assaults, things that take place. If you look at the entire situation, and, you're always, the choice is, the inmate always made the choice to assault.
Sure.
It's but could it have been prevented? Could it have been minimized by following the procedures as dictated? Very much so. There's an extraordinary amount of issues that take place where guys get headbutted, get kicked, get hurt because they took that quick shortcut.
Did you ever find it where, because this is where my brain goes, where it's almost the reverse, like by cutting corners or not following procedures, you presented the opportunity to that inmate to exploit.
You open the door. And I'll say also, with people who are going to listen to this and, some coworkers and stuff, I have cut corners like nobody's business. I was very fortunate most times, just luck of the draw that whatever. But when it comes down to it, procedures are in place for a reason. Policies are in place for a reason. We do A, B, C, and D for a reason. We don't do A, B, D. Without C, it's there for a reason, and it gets proven time and time again. Well, how did he headbutt you? Because he was standing there with one leg, while you're trying to do, it's just, or you were escorting him without a hand on his shoulder. There's always that opening, and they'll know that opening's there. They watch for that opening. They watch you all day. Hey, he doesn't escort properly. If I'm going to assault somebody, I'm looking for the one that I want to get, the one that doesn't follow the rules.
That makes complete sense. Yeah, of course. What else do they have to do besides study?
No, they do. They know everything about what you got going on and how you conduct your day and how you unwrap your Snickers bar at the desk. And so
you brought up an interesting, kind of an interesting line of questioning, if you will. Not this is an interrogation. I hope you don't feel that way.
Don't worry. I've been there.
Right? Yeah, I'm sure you have. So you develop these personal, just through proximity, right? Like you develop these personal relationships with these inmates, right? And can you kind of take me through some instances where, like, is there any pros and cons to that? Like I could see cons if you were just raging dickheads all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like it would almost. Do you understand what I'm asking? Where do you have to play nice with them? Was it more because you're sharing that space, right? You're obviously sharing that space. Them involuntarily, you voluntarily. Like, what did you do, if anything, to kind of coexist?
The biggest thing that's driven into you, and I can't speak for what the academy's like now, but when I started and I did a stint at the academy as a counselor several years into my career, was firm, fair, and consistent.
Okay.
Is you treat everybody firm, you know, the rules. These are the rules. These are what we have to stick to. You know, fair. I'm going to treat you just like I treat you, like I treat you, like I treat you. You know, if the inmates know that they're going to get the same thing across the board and not like I'm going to drop the hammer on you, but I'm going to let you slide and I don't like you. So if you treat everybody the same every day, they know that, and it becomes a respect thing. So firm, fair, and consistent. Consistent, I'm not going to choose to, enforce a rule Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, you guys do what you want. You have to do the same thing every day as far as doing your job and enforcing the rules that you're going to enforce. So if you are firm, fair, and consistent, your time becomes so much easier. Now, if you are consistently a dickhead to these guys all day, you're going to be making your job that much harder for yourself. But also if you're consistently a cream puff, they're going to walk all over you all day, every day. You just have to, treat everybody, as you want to be treated. The whole thing is respect. Even in the movies and all this stuff is respect. If, I give you respect and you give me respect, and that makes everything. It's surprisingly a cornerstone to your day. It's just how you treat them dictates a lot how they treat you. And obviously you're going to have the assholes who are going to be assholes to everybody they come across. And, you can't help that. But if you show respect and give respect and don't initiate, your time just becomes so much easier working. And it creates a working relation, not a personal relationship, but a working relationship. You don't want anything that's personal in there. That
makes complete sense, right? Do you know of instances, and I'm sure you do, where that line got blurred and personal relationships got established?
Oh, yeah. And it's always a downfall for somebody.
Like it never turns out good.
It never. A personal relationship in the penitentiary is never a positive outcome. So I love, because you get compromised. Your integrity is compromised. You endanger the rest of your staff members, the people around you. An extreme issue we had in recent years. So cell phones are a huge commodity inside the facilities nationwide. I mean, that is access to the world.
I can't, not to cut you off, but that makes no sense to me whatsoever that they have cell phones.
They don't.
Okay.
But they get them.
Oh, all right.
So we had an inmate who he had an escape attempt at an outside hospital. I'm not 100% sure of the very, very specifics, but while he was secured to the bed, he had what was like a makeshift pistol. I don't know what he utilized. I never got to see pictures of this item, but he had some kind of makeshift pistol, and he tried to, I'm going to disarm the officer, and the officer's like, yeah, right, buddy, and went and got help and squared the situation away.
Give him the old finger gun.
He tried to finger gun the guy. But needless to say, this guy becomes an extremely high escape risk classified inmate for the department, and he's at Dixon. And he's a very smart guy. He's a manipulator, and he watches and this and that, and he listens, and he picks up on the weaknesses people have and this and that. And he develops personal, like I said in the beginning there, these guys are the kings of manipulation.
They're predators, yeah.
Yes.
In every sense of the word.
Predators. Mm-hmm. And so he gets an officer that's assigned to his wing 5 days a week. He is the 5-day-a-week officer. And he develops a relationship with him. And it may just start off talking about, the Bears. And maybe, this and that. And then it progresses to, hey, what'd you do last night? The progression of,
He's building rapport.
And now I've got the hook in.
Yep.
And convinces eventually, I don't know how long this took or what the process was, to the point where he convinced this officer to bring him in a cell phone and charger. So this officer smuggled in a cell phone and charger and put it in the hands of a person who has a legitimate escape attempt on his record. So on top of, just being an absolute dirty shitbag who, I have no good words for that, for doing what he did. But on top of bringing contraband into an inmate, he put an item in the hands of a guy who's proven himself as someone who will do what it takes to depart. Mm-hmm. And he gave him the access and the tools to the world to coordinate mayhem, to coordinate something with people outside that could potentially end up harming and or killing one of our staff members that's handling him, because his whole thing was to manipulate, to self-injure or whatever, to get himself to the outside hospital. Now he's in the outside hospital. He's got a cell phone who can, possibly coordinate an effort that some of the pals are going to come up in the middle of the night and bust him out of there. This guy handed this man the tools to the world, and it just completely. It's one of the worst case scenarios for me, for that personal relationship and stuff.
It's so like, how do you get there, right? I mean, that corrections officer is obviously risking his employment, his job, his financial security, right?
Well, and if I was to have a good solid hold on what was going on, I believe the fella did do a lot of gambling. And maybe talk to the other officers, hey, around the desk, hey, yeah, I lost $100 last night. Hey, I lost $500. Oh, this weekend in Vegas, I lost, whatever. Hey, man, if I give you this, if I get you this much money, bring this in for you. And pretty
always
soon,
exploiting a weakness.
Yes, and that's the stuff they always listen for. You always have to watch what you're saying around these guys. Personal information gets used and turned against you, like that. So
that brings up another very interesting question: is like being on guard. Having basically like the shields up, right? Like. Your levels of awareness, and I don't know if they went through like Cooper's color code or anything, but I mean, you're right. So you're familiar, and so you're in the, you're at minimum in the yellow or the orange as far as like your levels of awareness at all, because it's not only the threat of physical violence, but also that that verbal or mental manipulation. How long did it take you to kind of come to terms with that, where you weren't like, it had to be exhausting? Right, it had to be exhausting until it just became part of your new normal. Right, we always talk. I've heard you guys, in the correctional officer circles, be like, of a 26-year period, what was your sentence? You know what I mean? Like you're doing time too, right? You're behind the
8
wall.
hours at a time.
Right. Like how did you do the math on yours?
I did not. I was just thinking about that when I was talking about, hey, they have all the time in the world and you're right along with them. So 26 some years, 8 hours at a time, sometimes 16 hours. But I never really did the math. But you're doing time right along with them.
You did a little bit of a bit. You just get to go home at night, right?
Yeah. I sleep in a better bed. Yeah.
Yeah. I just, when I'm listening, hanging around you guys, listening to you talk, like I'm not trying to manipulate, but these are the questions that go through my head. Like, man, you're doing a stretch yourself,
Yeah.
And talk to me about like did you ever find yourself feeling like they're institutionalized through the routine and, the day-to-day, that's their normal. Like, did you ever find yourself like, hey, I'm institutionalized in a similar manner? Did you ever feel that way?
I don't think so. You talk about being on guard and the shield's up and stuff. Sometimes it was a little hard to put some of that away going home.
I'm sure.
But not too bad. I guess I get for the majority of my career, it's a very fortunate mindset that when I hit the gate and I walked out the door, I didn't bring it home with me. It wasn't until I started becoming the main supervisor in the DPU as a lieutenant on day shift where I started bringing more home with me. Because
why do you think that was, if you don't mind?
Because I kind of mulling it over, because I thought, because I caught myself doing it, and my wife called me on it a couple times too. Stop talking to me like I'm a convict. You know what I mean? Like, don't talk to me like that. And one of these things. And I found myself thinking, like, I get up in the morning, I get in the shower, and I start thinking, I got this. What do I got to do? How do I got to accomplish this, and this? And I think a lot of it starts to stem from you're the boss in that building. And not to toot horns or anything like that, and nothing to, the guys that work Menard, the guys that work Pontiac, which are extraordinarily violent, explosive, maximum security. The whole facility is. I do kind of have a feeling for the most part of my career, the Dixon psychiatric unit was the powder keg of the state, the thing that just went fast like that. And you get a feeling you're responsible for all your guys. And so as an officer working the wing when I was out there, I was responsible for me and taking care of my wing and handling business and running what I got to do my job and go home. Well, as the lieutenant, I got the feeling of I'm responsible for Miles. I'm responsible for Dane. I'm responsible for Sean and Josh. All these guys that worked with me all those years out there.
It's an incredible additional burden,
it
right?
becomes, that's what I started bringing home. It's like, something happened to so-and-so, and how could I have prevented that, or what can we do better to do it? So
I understand.
When you get into a supervisory role, I think it starts, if you care.
I was going to say, if you're good, you care.
If you care. And, we do, every job, every walk of life has people that just do and go and don't give a shit. And then there's the people who care. And I would like to think that I care, and so when something happened to one of the guys or, something took place, that weighed on me. So it was during that time that I was bringing work home. It was there, and I had a hard time shutting some of it off. And then once I kind of got out of there towards the end, then it became so much more relaxed and easier again.
So let me ask this. What was that process like from, and like, please correct my language, where I'm, Nick, the new guy, I'm a first day, T-Day 1 correctional officer. Like, what was that process like to obtain rank or get into a leadership position or become the lieutenant? Like, how does that process work?
Well, since the Department of Corrections is a unionized entity for line staff and all that, officers, sergeants, lieutenants, unfortunately, a large portion of it is seniority.
Okay.
there are exceptions to the promotional process for exceptional candidates to beat seniority, but a lot of it is seniority.
Okay.
And so, and a lot of guys that end up getting promoted or we see getting promoted, it's like, I've got 20 years in, I deserve to be a sergeant. Okay, you got 20 years in. What have you done in those 20 years? Mm-hmm. Or you have a guy with 8 years in who is a straight up hard charging, ass kicking, rule enforcement, contraband sniffing, go guy. It's hard for him to beat. I've got 20 years in. You know what I mean? So a lot of that, is seniority. For somebody who's young and getting started to start making rank and moving, a degree is
first and foremost.
First and foremost, yeah, for point scoring. If you have that, it becomes that much easier. If you don't have a degree, you got to get lucky. You got to hit a promotional board that maybe not many high seniority people put in for, or something along those lines. But
is there like how do I get a gold star for the day, right? And I'm saying that in the most kind of elementary terms. Like, how do I get labeled as a hard charger, go getter, so on and so forth, right? Like, because in my brain, I'm like, as long as you control and follow protocol, and theoretically nothing bad happens that day, everybody just kind of did their job, mm-hmm. right? Like, what are the extracurriculars or the additional duties, or are there additional duties where you can kind of start getting gold stars next to your name?
Guys that raise their hand for shit.
Okay.
Our ERT, emergency response team, is a voluntary team. It's, you raise your hand for it.
Okay.
You start going to practices, you get yourself certified, you do that. For me, and I always tell the new guys that come on, guys that I've spoke with and stuff, I said, if you want to do anything in the department, in the facility or whatever, you need to be part of this. Because you have the access to training, you have the access to stuff. You're out there. You're at the forefront doing work. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with doing your 8 and going home if that's, sure. what you want to do. And some guys do their 8, go home, and still make spectacular careers and advance because they still go above and beyond than just what's needed in the cell house. But if you want to get moving fast track and you want to get things happening, you've got to get on with ERT. You've got to start doing that's my biggest push, my biggest opinion. Or some of the other stuff, we have what's called is you're a crisis team member. You work with mental health.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff where mental health is involved with what's going on with these guys' lives and this and that. And somebody might be having a hard time. I'm contemplating suicide. I need to talk to somebody. They send in if it's off hours and we don't have mental health staff on grounds, they'll send a crisis team member to speak with them. And their job really necessarily isn't to provide therapy. They can kind of do some things to talk them off the ledge, but they're there to listen.
Okay.
And then they're the ones that will communicate, call off grounds to mental health and get a course of action and work with to resolve the situation with that. But it's all about raising your hand to do stuff.
Okay.
If you're an officer starting out, raise your hand to do stuff. Hey, we're looking for people to do this. Hey, man, I'll do that.
And if I raised my hand for ERT, for the emergency response team, now what does that take me through that? What does that mean? Once I've raised my hand, is there any sort of a process, or anybody that raises their hand can do it? Or is there like a selection for it or an additional training?
It's not really just raise your hand and ominous dominus, you're
I would assume
ERT.
not.
No. You start going to practice. You tell the commanders and stuff, hey, I'm really interested in the team. Could I get a practice schedule, please? And you start attending practices. I'm not completely up to speed how many practices there are a month anymore, but you start attending practice and you start coming around and you start,
And what does a practice entail? Like what?
It could be anything from utilizing restraints and escorting people, cell extraction. A lot of it's cell extraction practice, because that is their, the bread and butter, is
right.
a calculated use of force cell extraction. I'm not coming out of this room. Yes, you are. And we're going to assist you. But there's marching, there's formation, there's crowd control, you name it. It's a very broad sword.
Sure.
So that's, you start going to practices and you start becoming known. And then after some consistency and kind of proving yourself in practice or whatever, when the time comes when there's a class for certification, the commanders will put your name in to send you off to whatever facility's holding a certification class. I believe it's 80 hours now. It used to be 40, but I believe it's 80 now. And then you're run through chemical agents and your more cell extractions and lots of, yard clearing, crowd control, formation, stuff like that. And it's just, you just go to school for that stuff.
That's very interesting. And so if you're on the ERT, and once again, forgive my ignorance, but you're just on standby, like the kit. I'm assuming you're in the kind of like full battle rattle, helmets and riot shields and the whole 9 yards. And if you're on, like, how does that work? Like the horn goes off and it's like ERT, respond to this, and it's a fire drill basically. Like, how quickly can I get dressed, or how does that work?
Prior to just a couple years ago, if you were an ERT member, back then it was TAC team. You were a TAC member.
Okay.
They changed the terminology and stuff so many times. But if you're an ERT member, back when I was, you worked a normal post. So I was the D-wing officer in the DPU. And that was my job, and that's what I did. And if it came time for a cell extraction, then somebody came and relieved you off your post. And then you went.
I guess what's the rush, right? Like, they're not going anywhere.
Right. All situational dependency. But yeah, for that, yeah. So you're relieved, and then you either go out to the TAC room that's outside the fence, or you go in the DPU. We had a TAC room immediately in there with all the same gear. And you suited up. Yeah, full battle rattle. Your jumpsuit and vest and the gloves and the helmet and the shin guards and elbow pads and all that stuff. And then you formed up and you went to work. Now, thankfully, we made a change at the MAX facilities, and then Dixon Psych being a MAX unit, we have a full-time shift-long ERT, that a 6-man team that is ready to go.
They're in the team room, so to speak, just kind of waiting.
Well, it's not quite that. It's not to that level. I think Cook County Jail does that, where they're lifting weights, they're this and that, and when the horn goes, they go. But our guys mainly work out of the DPU. They're dressed down. They're still in their BDU uniforms, but they're dressed down from all the gear, and they lend a hand with some of the day-to-day operations out there. But when the time comes, hey, we need you here, we suit up, we go do work. In addition to that, they also work with Intel IA and the security specialist on a lot of details.
IA's internal affairs?
Yes.
For the prison?
Yes.
Right.
So that's your targeted cell searches. They may go out and do mass movement searches where they're searching med lines or chow lines or yard lines, where they're putting hands on guys, patting them down and everything. And they could be called up just to go, to do stuff, or if there's an issue in another cell house where you have somebody that's non-compliant with, and going with the program, like say to go to SEG or whatever, they may, or let's just say a unit has a day room that's refusing to lock up. They will go there and they will lock them up.
And what are the negative repercussions? Because I've got to imagine, once again, and please educate me, at some point, if I'm a prisoner, this is almost a form of entertainment. Like, what did you ever come across that, or am I making that up in my own head? Where they're so, if I'm locked down 23 hours a day, and I just need some entertainment, I'm going to make these guys get suited up, right? Does that happen? Am I off base there?
No, you're 200% correct. I mean, I've personally been on multiple, extractions.
Like, let's do it. Let's get it on.
And either, I disrupted facility operations to get all these guys assembled, and then this is your first direct order to cuff up. Yeah, man, okay, cool.
It just immediately comply.
Or there's also been guys, where prior to the cell extraction, you try and talk them down. The state and everything wants you to do everything within your power to prevent physical use of force. Right. Yes. So these guys, when it's time to go. So just say you're not going to leave your cell.
Mm-hmm.
That cell house officer is going to give you basically 3, I'm giving you 3 direct orders. This is your first direct order, da-da-da-da-da. And then there's going to be a lieutenant that comes and gives you the 3 direct orders to go. Then you're going to have what's called the de-escalation response team member. Someone from somewhere else in the camp that has nothing to do with the situation. So if I'm working up at the front gate and I'm a DRT member and I get a phone call, say, hey, listen, there's a guy out in the X house that's refusing to cuff up to go on a crisis watch or whatever, to go to SEG, can you go DRT him? And you go out there and then that's not giving orders. That's hey, man, you're not going to win this, right?
Yeah, this is good, right.
Let's try and take the easy way out. You try and verbal judo and all that, and you try and, and then it kind of became a little, a win-loss record. It's like, how many guys could you DRT? And personally, and in the back of my head, I wanted to fail every time because ERT, cell extraction at heart all day. But it became kind of like a, hey, can I talk this one off the ledge?
Sure.
Hey man, I got one, or whatever.
No, I bet.
So you go through the DRT process, and they call and say, hey, yeah, I failed. I can't convince them to go. Now that lieutenant's got to come back with a video camera and videotape is 3 direct orders, the consent decree. We will be using pepper spray and all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. This is your first lawful and direct order to come to the cuff port, be placed in restraints, blah, blah, blah. So there's that. That fails. Now we have 3 members of the extraction team go and do the same thing the DRT guys do.
This is just redundant.
Hey, listen, you're not going to win this, right? We are going to remove you from that cell. Why don't you take the easy road? Da-da-da-da-da. No, fuck you. I want to fight.
Sweet. Okay.
After that, then the team comes, and once again, 3 more direct orders. Pepper spray will be used. A tactical team will be used to extract you from this cell.
It's just massive CFA.
It's now you can
your
show.
Ass, rather.
Yes, now you can show. Hey, we gave him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, umpteen opportunities to comply, and we exhausted everything. Now, when we go in and you don't like how the result of the polyester pile falling down on you, so yeah, it's they get an extraordinary amount, and they will. I've had guys that have, I'm gonna fight today. I'm bored.
I believe it.
There are guys that tell you, hey, I'm bored. I want to blow off steam. It's like, are you sure you want to do this? Yeah, man, I'm bored. Go get your guys, and we'll go do it.
Yeah, I 100% believe it. I mean, obviously, I've never been, once again, knock on wood, I've never been incarcerated. The only thing that I can relate to, the life of an inmate is the SEER training that we went through. And even in the SEER training, which you obviously knew was training for a purpose, it wasn't necessarily, I mean, they do the best job they can making it as real as possible.
Right.
I mean, they are putting their hands on you and so on and so forth. But the natural inclination of the person who is in captivity to kind of press buttons and see what they can get away with, and let's see if I can initiate what kind of response, right? And particularly like in that survival, evasion, resistance, escape training, like you almost always would push the button until they started putting hands on you, and you're like, okay, now I know where the line's at. You know what I mean? And then just start finding different kind of avenues, right? So it does not surprise me at all that just almost a form of entertainment.
Yeah, boredom.
Yep.
Sometimes they do. They'll turn on each other.
Sure.
And, this and that, or it's I'm gonna screw with this officer here, and I'm gonna push his buttons until he pops, and sometimes they do. So I mean, that's very much so, and many instances of I'm bored today. I'm gonna disrupt this place, and I'm gonna make them suit up a team. And back when we depending on the numbers and stuff, on the 11 to 7 shift, we would call people in from home. I'd get a call at 2:30 in the morning.
No way.
Oh yeah. Hey, can you come extract a guy? Well, yeah, I'm going to get overtime for this.
Yeah. This isn't pro bono, is it?
Yeah, I'm going to be right there. Hang on. So, and then you get to the door and say, hey, man, you better not cuff up on this first order. You get me out of bed at 2 in the morning. You better be ready to go. No, man, I'm going to cuff up. All right, I'm getting paid.
Well, and that's what's so intriguing is because even in the face of like that physical violence, that coexistence, which is what I find so fascinating, is it's not like you're a stranger. When you show up in when the NFL, suited up like you're getting ready to play football, shows up at the cell, you know the person and they know you.
Yeah.
They know the game. And so it's so fascinating to me that it's just a case study in all examples where it's like, no, today I want to fight. Like I know the rules, I know the system just as well as you. This is my form of entertainment.
One of the particular, 2:30 a.m. ones, my partner that I worked with for years out in the DPU, Trent Hanrahan, there's no other way to describe this guy but a monster.
Mm-hmm.
He is, and I loved working with the guy day in and day out, and we had each other's back, thick and thin. I mean, that was my guy back in the day before he transferred to a minimum camp.
Well, I don't want to burst your bubble, but none of you guys are small. You're easy to pick out. You're big dudes.
Trent, he is something. And it was at 2:30 in the morning. I think he was working overtime. He happened to be on shift. I got called in, and we got to the door, and the inmate gets to the window, and he's like, "Oh fuck, they called you guys." Nah, I'll cuff up.
Yeah, I changed my mind.
Oh damn it! Come on, man, you got me out of bed for this.
Oh,
but yeah, it was some of it was like it was depending on who was standing at the door. They look out that window and be like, no, not today, or oh yeah, we're gonna have fun.
I bet.
So
I bet it's incredible, dude. Just like I said, the bizarre connection and relationship, in the strangest environment, if you ask me, what are the negative repercussions for that inmate once you do extract them forcefully? Let's say you forcefully extract them, then what are kind of the slaps on what happens to them after that? They get put in timeout or what happens?
Yeah. The disciplinary process for the Department of Corrections it's a ticket is what it's called. You get an IDR. It's a ticket, and you're going to get whatever infractions,
And what does IDR stand for?
Inmate disciplinary report.
Okay.
I keep saying inmate. The terminology of the department likes to utilize now is individual in custody. I'm not saying that mouthful. And after so many years of saying inmate, I'm not, when it counted, when I was talking with bosses and stuff, yes, individual, but no, inmate disciplinary report. And it was an IDR. It's a ticket, So if I get caught, doing whatever and I violate whatever rule, I'm going to get a ticket for it. And you have major and minor tickets. Major tickets have the possibility of carrying segregation time, loss of that good time, grade demotion, stuff like that. The minor tickets you may get, you can't go to yard for 10 days or something like that. But for say, for a cell extraction, let's go worst case scenario. You enter the cell, this guy goes into full on battle. All right, you're going to have charges for assault to the officer. You're going to have disobeying a direct order. You refused all those orders to comply with being moved. You're going to have unauthorized movement. You failed to move from point A to point B as instructed.
Yep.
All those things. So you're going to get a litany of charges there, and then you're going to get whatever that carries. You're going to get seg time. You're going to get more privileges taken. Stuff like that. So, but I mean, the consequences these days are not. They don't fear the disciplinary process anymore.
Did you notice? Well, right. I mean, if there's no real negative repercussion for those types of actions, then it is truly kind of I just want to be entertained. Did you notice over the 26 plus year tenure there, a change in the better or for the worse as far as like, because I think it's easy to kind of skip over or gloss over that these people are supposed to be being rehabilitated. In your experience, because you have almost 30 years of experience, is there any rehabilitation going on at all? Or it's like, does that make sense?
There's some. And I think if they're going to change, if they're going to mend their ways and become better, 90% of it is driven by them. Yeah, I don't ever want to come back here.
Were there any success stories?
Oh, I'm sure there's all kinds of, stuff. But for the most part, I couldn't tell you the numbers of return customers, percentage of recidivism and all that stuff. But I don't think we try to provide rehabilitative stuff, and there are your vocational classes, your education, stuff like that, and some of it works, and some of it is beneficial. But there's also that segment of the population, and criminals are going to be criminals, and whatever. I'll go to school because I've got nothing else to do today. Or I'll go to shop class because I got nothing else. Am I going to apply it when I get out? No, I'm going to go back to doing what it is I do. There's just some of them that, there's, I guess you don't want to use the term no hope, but, they've made the determination that I'm a criminal. I'm going to remain a criminal. So.
And did you have quite a few that were, I don't want to say, nobody's necessarily, at least the first time, there voluntarily, right? They were apprehended or charged or convicted of doing whatever. Did you run into a lot where they were kind of acclimated and institutionalized where they did not want to leave? They wanted to basically, this is my new normal and I'm comfortable here.
Very much so. I've had, multiple conversations with guys that were incarcerated in the mid to late 70s and 80s and stuff, guys that have done time and guys that did hard time, at Menard and Pontiac and all that stuff back in, the wilder days, guys that, they know nothing. It's kind of like the Shawshank,
right?
It's
one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, that's a very true thing, I think. There, especially with the older guys. And I'm not talking, like just they got locked up at 60 years old. I mean, the guys that got locked up at 19, 20, 21, and now here they are, and they're 50, 60 years old. Their entire life, they've known nothing but. And yeah, it's a very real thing. Hey, Knudson, I don't know what I'm going to do. What's this internet thing? Literally.
That was the example I was going to use. If you got locked up, pre-internet, and then you come out, depending on where you're at, and I don't know, you would have to tell me if you've never been exposed, like the world pre-internet and then post-internet, that would be, you're stepping onto a different planet, right? That would be very unsettling.
There, in particular, there's a fellow that was locked up in the 70s, and he was a mental health guy and also very, very violent tendencies early in his career. I mean, I think at one point he disarmed an officer and attempted to shoot him, and it went click instead of bang.
No kidding.
Yeah, I mean that's where we were, where that
like to stay or what, or just because he lost his shit.
He was attempting to escape. It was an outside hospital thing, but he got a gun and it went click instead of bang, and so this guy was he was a handful. He was an issue for years and years and years, but time and age and wear and tear had worn him down to I'm just a crazy old man. But there is also still something to him. And I had a lot of conversations with him and he didn't talk to very many other people. I mentioned Trent Hanrahan earlier. This guy would pretty much only talk to me or Trent. And we talked several times here but prior to me leaving and going to work out of Springfield, where it was, I don't know, because he was part of that sentencing time where they review him every year, whether to keep him or let him go.
Okay.
And he's like, they're talking about letting me go, and I have no clue. He knew that he had no clue how he would function on the outside. All I could think was Shawshank stuff. This guy is going to step out there and be like, I don't know any of this, because all he's known since the 70s is the inside of the 8x10 and the razor wire.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible what you get used to and what you get comfortable with. And
institutionalized is a very real thing.
I'm sure it is. And like I said, and that's why I asked the question, if at any point in your career you kind of felt the same way, because I can remember when my brother first got the job at DOC, one of my teammates where I worked previously, he goes, "How long has he been there?" And I said, "Well, he just started." And he goes, "Well, keep a good eye on him and watch him." And I was like, "Why? What's up? What are you talking about?" And he goes, "I've had plenty of friends, be in the Department of Corrections, and they get institutionalized as well, just through proximity, right? Because once again, you're all going through kind of the same processes on a day-to-day basis, just you're on the better end of it, so to speak, than they are, And so, yeah, I don't think, and you can attest, I think it would be very, very difficult to spend that amount of time in that regimented, very procedural-based environment and not have it become kind of part of your identity. Is that fair?
Oh, very much so. And I would say I'm extraordinarily fortunate. The cards for once couldn't have fallen any better for me at the end of my career, as with the job I was doing. As the facility security specialist, I wasn't in the day-to-day cell house work. I wasn't in the day-to-day, the line. So decompression started a little for me. And then I got detailed to Springfield to work out of the operations office as the Northern Region security specialist for the state. And so decompression began to really pick up, and then I retired. I walked out the door almost completely, I guess free of it. I wasn't someone who was working a seg wing to the very last day and then walked out the door with everything still running full throttle.
Right.
And it's a very stress works in like several different ways. And one that's been proven is the sudden stop.
Yeah.
The sudden stop. I have a very good friend of mine who ended up going to be one of the wardens at the Joliet Treatment Center, a mental health facility that was recently opened. And this guy was a lieutenant that worked at Dixon with me and stuff, and had worked at Stateville, and just high speed. He never had an off switch, and he was a riot to work with. And he moved up and he went to this AW spot at a high-speed facility, kind of, just like Dixon Psych. It was nonstop. We have fires, we have staff assault, we have self-injury, we have this, all day, every day, all 3 shifts. So, and as a warden, you're on duty. You get calls at 2 a.m. Hey, I got to send a guy to the hospital. He wrapped a bunch of stuff around his leg, lit it on fire, and this and that. So he's running at 200 miles an hour. And he takes basically a demotion and becomes a major at a very well-run medium security camp.
It's almost like he's bored, he's not stimulated enough.
And so he goes from 200 miles an hour to 5. And he had a major cardiac incident.
Oh, I believe, yeah, I bet.
Just walk, at work, if I remember the story he told me correctly, walk around work, going to do some check in the middle of the night, and I don't feel good. You don't look good. And off we went, and yeah.
Oh, no shit, you were standing there?
No, it was just the story him telling him. It was a major cardiac. I don't know if it was quite a heart attack or what he had, but, and the doctor said, hey, look what you've been doing for umpteen years until now.
Yep.
And then, you locked up the brakes and your body went, hey, we're still rocking up here. And so, yeah, there's that sudden stop. And I was very fortunate not to have that stop at the end. I got to coast and decompress and shut it down prior to walking
gradually,
out the door.
Kind of titrate off, not cold turkey. Right. Well, you held a bunch of different positions, like right? Is that
somewhat? Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, when my brother and I were speaking, he's like, Pete's done all of it, from firearms instructor, what was it? Safety, building safety. What was the term you kept using?
Security specialist.
Security specialist. And then you said you went down to Springfield. Like, what was that? Were you always at DOC? And once again, forgive me for the elementary question, but what was why go down to Springfield and for what?
Well, the chief of operations has a team that work directly for him. You have what's the statewide security administrator, statewide security specialist, or whatever. The titles change and stuff. It is a statewide. He is the main security specialist for the state, and then you'll have a regional. It used to be North, Central, and South. They redistricted to like 1, 2, and 3, but we still always refer to it kind of as North, Central, and South. And so with a retirement out of the North, they, prior to filling it, because filling vacancies does take time and all this stuff, getting jobs posted and things like that, they ask for a temporary assignment. Anybody volunteered a temporary assignment to the Northern Region security specialist for however many days. And, I raised my hand, sent my resume in, and over the years, I felt like, I've kind of proven myself to those guys as a facility security specialist. And so I was chosen for that spot. And so that's where I worked out of. I still was a Dixon Correctional Center lieutenant, but I was TA'd to the security specialist for the northern region of the state, and I worked out of the operations office there.
And how long did you do that for?
That was from September to July 1st when I retired.
Oh, okay. So kind of like a twilight tour then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome, man.
It was an extraordinary opportunity, and I got to work with some of the damn best people in the department. It was an experience I will never forget. It was just cool. It was just people ask, at times, well, what do you guys do? We don't even know what you guys do. And I kind of, especially after working with Dane and so many other guys and stuff and military guys, and I kind of, we're the E4 Mafia.
Sure.
What do you mean by that? It's like, well, no one really knows what the hell we do. But when the boss says, hey, go fix this shit, we go fix it. Hey, we've got a problem at this facility regarding this. Go look at it. Go see what can be done. Get your recommendations to me, and we will, make changes. And so that was a lot of it. Was like, go unfuck this.
That seems like we're talking physical security, structural security.
You name it. Like procedural stuff. You name it.
That seems like an immense amount of information for one person. Like, kudos to you. Like, that's a lot. I mean, these are not small facilities.
Right.
Right. That's incredible, dude.
Yeah, it was an extraordinary experience. I'm so extremely grateful to, I still tell my old boss there, Brad, that, hey, thank you. Thank you for choosing me for this. I appreciate it because I couldn't think of a better way to go out with a smile on my face. But yeah, it was a great job. I loved it.
That's badass, man. And say nothing about, like you said, the ability to kind of unwind and decompress, so you're not coming out of the gate hot. We used to joke in the Marine Corps all the time, you knew which sergeant major was going to, have the big one the minute he was, minute he retired or whatever. And there, I mean, it's a real thing.
The one that's got that vein that runs down the center of the head all day, every day.
Exactly. Well, I had a question pop into my head. So, and we're going to rewind a little bit. So how, kind of a two-part question, you had to have mentors, someone that you looked to when you got there as kind of Nick, the new guy. Is there, like, who were your positive role models and the people that had been there for a while and took put you under their wing and kind of showed you, hey, yep, the academy is this, but this is how we do this here. And there had to be people like that in your life? Oh
my God, yeah. And I'll drop their names because they deserve, the recognition. Monty Smith was a lieutenant on 11 to 7 that I hold in high regard. I tried to model a lot off of his actions. Incredible guy, incredible person, incredible lieutenant. Just that, leader without having to, he could be wearing coveralls coming out from underneath a car work, and he's a leader. Steve Dillabaugh was another one. I'm sure you're familiar with Steve over there.
I'm sure I've met him. Yeah.
Rick Rubin. There's so many that I could keep naming. Snooky Rutherford and Tony Gillette. Just these guys, how they conducted themselves and how they just handled business. And I'm not talking about putting foot to ass either, because every one of them is very proficient at it. But also how they just handled themselves with coworkers, supervisors, and subordinates, and the inmates. Just watching how they interact, how they talk with, how they dealt with. Those were guys that I saw that I'm like, that's how it's done. Mm-hmm. And then, there's the other side of the coin where it's like, I don't want to be anything like that.
Sure.
But no, that was a core of guys that I really looked up to and really kind of set the path of how I want to operate and how I want to do things. Mm-hmm. Then, there's my teammates that I had on like ERT, Scott Meyer, who's our current TAC commander and stuff, Jeff Dahlke. There's just guys that, that there's something special. Nate Newman, the guy that is following me as a security specialist at Dixon, like I said earlier, just guys that they've got it, and they're going to encourage, go do something, get on it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's a good handful of people that really molded and helped. And even when I was close to on my way out, I would glean from them, how they.
Yeah, and I'm sure, because I know you fairly well, I'm sure you are, you're that name to somebody else. Like, I'm sure you are a fantastic mentor and a role model to the, newer Department of Correctional officers coming on, right? It's a responsibility that, like you said, as a lieutenant or as if you're in a leadership position, we somebody took care of us, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And we got to take care of them. And I think that's badass. And that's a question that I ask like a lot of the guests that come on, because I don't think we would be here, right, if we didn't have those positive influence and people to really show us, and sometimes help us from ourselves,
right?
Or save us from ourselves,
I had plenty of those, by hey,
yeah,
dummy,
tough guy,
yeah. You're gonna get yourself fired. You keep doing that stuff, okay?
Yeah, and like I said, like I'd rather have need a leash than need a cattle prod, if that makes sense, right? Yeah. Like you want people that are going to be aggressive, go-getters, but aggressive in a controlled and logical and smart, way, especially in a very hostile or potentially hostile environment, that you lived and breathed and operated in on a day-to-day basis. Mm-hmm. Like I said, the immense amount of, to me, an outsider, it had to be an incredibly mentally taxing just to be on guard. And not only that, but I would assume, correct me if I'm wrong, that you're also kind of watching your teammates for that, that inappropriate behavior or those, them going down a wrong path. Road. Right. Is that a fair assumption? Like if you knew that guy was going to, hand off the cell phone to, Johnny what's-his-face, Hannibal Lecter or whoever's, manipulated him into, that's got to be a very, very difficult situation to be in as well, right?
Yeah,
like, I mean, are we ratting on our own teammates? Like, what are we doing,
There's, you want to talk about, like the code and everything and this and that, it's because there's certain things. If it's you and I, and we're in there, and I will cover your ass for just about anything short of you're doing something dirty with a convict. All right. If, for the most part, the rat, the snitch culture and all that stuff, at least in my eyes, I will do everything I can to help you get out of whatever trouble you might be getting yourself into, short of if you're doing something with a convict. If you're compromising the integrity of the job, the department, and your people around you and jeopardizing their safety and stuff, I have no room for that. None. If you got a little handsy and pushed a guy around and all of a sudden somebody told on you for it, I'm going to try and help you. We're going to write your report this way so it kind of,
sure.
We want to clean up to minimize whatever takes place. But as far as, now, now that I'm out of the job, I'll say stuff like this. Yeah, as long as you are not compromising the integrity of the department and the job and jeopardizing safety of our staff by interacting with convicts, I'll try and help you as best I can without putting my neck on the chopping block. You know what I mean?
Which is fair, right? It's fair. It's like, hey, don't do anything that A, is going to compromise you, and then B, inadvertently compromise me. Right? Because I still got to feed my family, and but you struggle with that, right? Like, it's a team. We dealt with it in the military. It's like, hey, man, there's a line, don't cross it. At least don't cross it on purpose.
Right.
And so it was something I wanted to ask, because I'm sure. I mean, once again, just hearing the stories secondhand, and I'm sure they're endless. It would be a very, very, dicey, kind of environment to operate in on a day-to-day basis. At what point in your career, did you, and I'm going to use the term like acclimated or mentally in tune with like the baseline of your environment, where you started to, like, if I walked into the prison, if you and I walked into I'm just going to use the day room as an example, right? Or what I think the day room is, which is a large open area, tables, TVs and stuff, right? You're going to walk in there and we're both watching the same movie, but you have subtitles. You know who's who in the zoo. You can see things that somebody like me on T-Day 1, like, you've been there for 26 years. I've only been there for 5 minutes. Like, you're going to see an entirely different movie than me, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Like, at what point did you feel like you started to kind of, it's the old sailboat in the mall. If I stare at this picture for long enough and relax my eyes, the sailboat will come out type of deal, right? I always use that as an example, like a visual example. How long was it before you felt like you could kind of see the matrix, if you will?
The biggest push and arrival to that point was getting off of night shift. I spent a lot of time. I got hired onto 11 to 7, which was cool because I hate the second shift hours. I don't like the feeling of waking up waiting to go to work, and then all that stuff. I worked at all at Rainer. I was always second shift, and just nothing with the people or the job or anything like that. I just hate 3 to 11. So with my seniority, it's either, it's 3, you're doomed to 3 to 11. Well, I got lucky and ended up on 11 to 7. And the biggest thing with that is you can still lead kind of a normal life. Everybody's going to work, you're going to bed, everybody's going to work, whatever. And then you meet in the middle. So 11 to 7 was, while it was great for my life, my home life and everything, you don't get to see the movie. You might get the preview, you might get the trailer, until you get off a night shift,
because they're in the rack.
Right. Yeah. Your interactions are very limited. And so then in my time, it took at least 5 to 7 years to get to day shift, maybe. So when I got to day shift, then it became, then I could start picking up on it. So I would say to get the subtitles, I would say probably with about 8 years or so.
God, you're almost a decade deep, right?
And by then I'd made sergeant, so it was.
And were you self-aware enough, right? At that, because that's almost like it's almost T-Day 1 all over again, except for you've got the place memorized, all the procedures, but now we've got live action role players. Right?
I did not have a lot of live action as an officer on day shift. I came in as a sergeant for the most part. Just real quick timeline. I had 5 years in. I promoted to sergeant in 5 years. Union wasn't happy about that. What's this guy doing with 5 years?
Is that fast? I'm sorry.
No, that's very fast.
Okay.
At the time, it's seniority driven. So myself and 2 others, I want to say 5 years, 8 years, and 8 years, against a field of 17, 18, and 20-year type veterans.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So there was 3 postings. We made sergeant. The union did not like that. And so there was grievances. There was this and that, and there's arbitration and all kinds of stuff. And the arbitrator came back with his ruling was you can either re-interview the entire
field,
field with a different panel, or you could take everybody's score and average it and then go from that, because their interview score. So real quick, with the promotion, for somebody with lower seniority to beat somebody higher, you have what's called to be demonstratively superior. So you have, if
It just
I've
sounds
got,
badass.
yeah, demonstrably superior. So if I've got 5 years, you've got 10 years, and I'm going to beat you, I have to beat you by 10 points in the scoring. Okay? So I have a college degree. You get 2 points education for just having your high school diploma. You get 10 points for a college degree for a bachelor's. So right there, with me having a bachelor's, I have now beaten you by 8 points. And then by any additional training that I may have that you don't, I can get to 10 points and beat you. Okay. Well, they're saying, that the scoring was, I guess doctored or whatever to get us in place. And the arbitrator said, fine, here's what I'm going to tell you to do. You're going to either re-interview everybody, or you're going to average everybody's interview score and then give them that. So while we still had the top scores and they averaged them, the list came out pretty much in the same order. But by getting everybody the average, it was able to get higher seniority people up into that 10-point swing. So it's, it's your top 10, your scores. And so within that 10-point block, it's filled from by seniority. Well, it allowed those higher seniority people to get into the bottom end of that 10-point swing. And so then the original grievance was, we're going to promote the 3 that are supposed to be, with no harm to the 3 that were promoted, us. Well, somebody somewhere administratively said, no, we're going to return those guys to officers. So I had been a sergeant for 2 years, from 04 to 06.
It took 2 years for this to kind of hash out?
It took 2 years. Yeah, so I had 2 years as a sergeant listening to and hearing this.
Yeah.
So after 2 years as a sergeant, I wasn't demoted. I had an involuntary reduction in grade.
That's a nice way to put it.
Back to officer. So yeah, I was
a super good job.
Yeah, thanks for your service. Here's this. But so I went back to officer for 2 years, and then they had another promotion, and I got sergeant again. So in 08, I became a sergeant again, and by that time, I was able to, start being able to see the movie a lot better. So it takes time.
Yeah, that's an incredible amount of time.
Sorry, I meandered with some of that, but that was just some of the timeline there.
No, because I was going to ask you anyways, and that brings on a further on question, and this is going to sound like a silly question, but because I've never been in your shoes, what are the pros to being promoted other than pay?
The amount of people you have to listen to decreases with every step you take.
Yeah, that makes sense. Right, of course.
And some of the people that are telling you what to do, you find out pretty quickly don't have a lot of business telling you what to do. So
Isn't that nice being retired?
Oh God, it's great. It's
you
so
can say
cool.
whatever you want.
It's so cool. That was something I would say anyways.
Yeah.
But what was I? It was everybody. A lot of questions were asking. Well, why'd you promote so early? Because as a sergeant, now sergeant seniority and lieutenant seniority are two different animals. When you become a lieutenant, your seniority starts the day of your promotion.
Oh, you start over.
You start over.
Yep.
As a sergeant, it's your date of hire. So I became over time the longest sitting sergeant with the least amount of seniority because they kept piling people with higher seniority on top of me. And so the question would always be asked, why would you put yourself through that? You get shit days off, this, that, you get stuck on 11 to 7, you get stuck on 3 to 11, I go, well, one, the increase in pay is spectacular. I love it. I'm never going to argue about that. And two, the amount of people I have to listen to decreases with every step I take.
That's just as good as the pay, if you ask me.
And
right?
Promoting early, I never had good days off to know what it's like to have good days off, to lose good days off. Hey, here's my Tuesday, Wednesdays. Cool. Oh, I get Monday, Tuesdays now. Great. I never knew what it was like to have those weekends. So it was kind of a no-brainer. The
reason why I asked that is because I was, during my brother's tenure there, and I think he was just shy of 10 years. Excuse me. Obviously, he's not here to correct me, but it was a considerable amount of time. And I used to ask him, I'm like, why don't you attempt to climb the ladder? And or someone was taking like the lieutenant's test or what have you, and I was listening to him talk, and I said, well, why don't you do that, right? And he said, because at the time I was like, newsflash. He goes, if I made lieutenant, then my time starts over and they probably put me back on nights. And I don't want to go back on nights. And I was like, okay, that makes sense, or at least made sense when he was saying it,
It's huge. It's a huge thing because there are so many guys and like you supervisors and leaders, and there are so many leaders that would just benefit the department, would benefit the facility, and just make things so much better. Guys that are going to handle
if they
business.
level up a little bit.
And they get hung up on, and you can't blame them one
Not
bit,
at all.
because you got to put family first. You got to put your life first. My kids are starting t-ball and football, and I don't want to miss that being on 311. You can't blame them a bit. But, God, it chaps my ass to know that, we're missing out on you, doing because, you don't want to start over. And I can't blame them. I completely see it because I went through it. My wife tolerated,
She's
all
a
of it.
saint.
Yeah, my God.
She's a saint.
Real little kids, and here I'm a lieutenant on 3 to 11 starting over and all that stuff. So yeah, I can't blame them, but it hurts to watch that happen. Where good leaders are not stepping up, and then it's allowing I passed the lieutenant test, I can do it, and then that's what you get.
Indulge me for a second here, because once again, only going off the movies, is like how many wardens did you go through in your tenure?
Let's see.
Is it a pretty high turnover rate?
Depending on facility, but yeah, you don't have a warden for 10 years or something like that. I remember sitting in the warden's conference room at Pontiac, and a comment was made about the photo lineup. You have your photo lineup of all the wardens, and it's, 2010, 2011, and the next warden, 2011, 2012. It's
super short, huh?
Very short. Either they move on to greener pastures, or at their end of their career and they retire, they move up. But yeah, I wish I could, give you a quick, I want to say at least 5 to 6 wardens. Maybe, yeah.
And the reason why I asked is, could you see? I mean, that's a very short amount of time. Could you see and notice differences from warden to warden?
Oh yeah,
for better, for worse, everything in between.
Up and down. The biggest thing depends where that warden came from.
And that's not to kind of, I don't want to rapid fire questions at you, but it's like, how does one even get there and become like? Go on, continue with your thought, but I'm like, how does one even get to that position?
We've had wardens hired off the street from like.
You're kidding me?
No, if I'm correct, and if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but we had an assistant warden of programs that was hired from the Rockford School District, if I remember correctly. We've had wardens come in from the county correctional systems before, where they've made rank at the county, and then, by proving themselves, they've come in. We've had wardens that have made their way from officer on up. It's just, that's what
goes through my head, right? Is like, you're a line guy all the way up, or gal all the way up, right?
They are out there, but they come from all avenues. You would not believe the ways into.
So could I apply?
Sure.
I mean, what is the criteria?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to look at the job posting to see what all of it is. But no,
that is bananas to me, dude. That is bananas. I mean, is it because it's purely, obviously you have very competent, professionals underneath of you, right? You would assume, right? Yourself being one of them. Is it just because it's so purely administrative in a sense that they can do that? Like, or...
I think when I mentioned assistant warden of programs, you can definitely do it with that, because you're in charge of healthcare, you're in charge of the education, you're in charge of programming, mental health, stuff like that. And depending on the background, if you've got a master's degree in like psychology or, education, things like that, with maybe other avenues of experience in your life and your job history, could put you right in that chair, and you would manage that just fine. The assistant warden of operations, on the other hand, I think you have to come from a corrections background. You have to be able to understand how penitentiaries operate, how, dealing with inmates operates and stuff like that. So programs, wardens you will see can come from various avenues, but your main warden and your assistant warden of operations, it's almost a necessity. They have to come from some sort of law enforcement background.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And going back to the question from warden to warden, can you give me some examples of like, hey, this warden came in, and obviously you don't have to name anybody, but this warden came in and things really started to, turn for the better, or this warden came in and it was dark days.
Oh, yeah. We had, when I first started, the warden that was the man. He had the concept in his mind, and his operating philosophy was, if you keep them so busy working, they don't have time for shenanigans.
To fuck around. Yeah.
And this guy literally was, get me a crew of convicts, take that clean snow to cover that dirty snow. That is no exaggeration. We were doing a shakedown detail in a cell house, and this man came in. This is the warden. And I am brand new at this time, brand new. And I saw a warden in a suit go into a shower and kneel down and take his keys and scrub, grind on the grout a little bit and look at his keys. We're in the middle of a shakedown. We are locked down. The entire facility's locked down. And this man says, get some bodies in there to clean those goddamn showers.
Really?
I mean, but that was his thing. If by God, if he came into your cell house and you didn't have your porters out working, your janitors sweeping, mopping, wiping windows and stuff, it was your ass, and it was your sergeant's ass, and it was your lieutenant's ass.
He didn't have,
it was back down to your ass
that's
again.
Everybody's ass, right?
Yes. So, and that guy, that was great. A couple wardens later, we ended up with somebody who the priority was the benefit of the inmate and how's the inmate doing and the care. And one that I personally witnessed in the X house was we had an officer get assaulted. An assault is an assault, but it wasn't like he got carried out. I think he got kicked square up in the balls and punched in the face type thing or something. He got rocked. And then the fellow, his use of force to get the fella squared away and then get him to seg and everything. And when it was all said and done and the smoke was clearing and everybody's writing their reports and this and that, here comes the warden. Warden walks in the cell house, walks directly to the wing, walks past all of us staff members who are there doing our paperwork and getting stuff done, walks directly to that convict cell. How are you? Are you okay?
What the fuck?
And the out in the open, don't give a shit of this person was, we could hear, is there anything you need? And looking him over, and then walk back, and the biggest slap in the face was as this person turned to the officer. Oh, are you okay?
What
Do
the
you need
fuck?
anything? And the officer was like, nope, I don't need anything from you. Thanks. Have a nice day.
Yeah.
And I mean that happened, and that was a real eye opener to watch that happen, and then preceding stuff where I would see this person rather go in and talk to the convicts in the day room than address what the officer had to say what's going on. So it swings both ways all the time, and I know you have to balance it. You have to listen to what they say. You have to address their issues, but you have to prioritize your staff. You always have to put your staff first. They're the ones that keep you in business. They're the ones that keep you safe and keep the place running. You have to address and go with your staff. Understood that you have to address and you have to work with them too, with the inmates, but to prioritize the inmates over your staff was a real slapper in the face. They're real disappointing to see.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can't. It's almost. It would be like you're it would be, to use a military analogy, it would be like your company or battalion commander going and talking to the enemy combatants before they acknowledged whatever you need, so to speak, right? Like, I can't imagine a bigger slap in the face than that. Like, hey, what the fuck,
The one thing, with some of the admin and some of the supervisors was, after an incident, well, what'd you do to provoke him? Or a question to the immediate supervisor, well, what did he do to provoke that assault? Like it was your fault. There was some of that mentality has poked its head up throughout the years.
That I would it's safe to assume that if I was in that position and found myself in that position, there'd be a strong inclination to not show up to work the next day. Mm-hmm. Like, is there a fair amount of attrition in 26 years you had to see? Like, was there a fair amount of people that were like, you know what, this just isn't kind of worth it? The biggest thing is the money and the benefits. Mm-hmm. You get so far into the career, it becomes more and more impossible because are you going to start? How are you going to start over when you're living at this, and then I can't handle this anymore, and I got to start over at this? It makes it hard. The money and the benefits locks you in place, and there are some that get out. And I hesitate, but I will say it because you had your brother on. I mean, we had some real conversations prior to his departure. Where he's like, I'm tired of being told I signed up for this. Why do I need to get punched in the face and I have to play nice? I have to, I can't, I get in trouble if I retaliate. I get punched in the face and a guy lays down and puts his hands behind his back. I can't do anything to him. He goes, I'm not built like that. And I go, I understand. I go, that is... And I had that happen to me personally. I got rocked by a convict. He caught me looking, got me, distracted me for a quick hot second, and he put me on my ass. I mean, all I heard was a bang, and I was on my butt. Kick, fist, elbow?
Fist. So this guy, and we have different theories about what took place with all this, but... the reasoning behind it and stuff, but this cat went out to the yard and stood under the tower officer there stroking his dick.
Oh, that's
at the
nice
female, officer. So
that's great.
He's gonna go to SEG. So he comes back from yard and I'm going down. I'm like, hey man, I'm going to take you to SEG. And he's like, well, I'm going to pack my property. You can come get me after, the next shift. I'm like, no, that's not happening. He goes, yeah, I'm going to pack my property, blah, 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 blah. I said, no, you're going to go now. I have to take you now. And he starts reaching for the door, and I'm standing by the door there, and he starts to try and close the door on me, to stop the door. Well, that was his distraction, was the door. My hand goes up to block the door. Well, here comes the other side, and boom. And he got me. And you watch the videotape, I go straight down to my ass and trying to pull myself up off the floor. But he ran out to the middle of the gallery, under the cameras. He ran out in the middle of the wing and put his arms out, laid face down. That was what he did. And that's, the stuff you go through. I think Dane's, last issue was he was assaulted, and then the guy, called no joy right there, and you can't do anything. And so that was, for him to be able to walk away from that, was, it was something, because you could see, you knew he was hurting, and it was hurting me, having to talk with him a lot about that. And, but he was able to go forward and still, maintain. Like I said, some people don't have those good avenues, working with the state and stuff, to just leave and start over. So a lot of that locks in and makes it hard to get away. And
this is somewhat of a personal question. Did you find that it was hard? Did you click up with other Department of Correctional officers where you kind of, no different than like in the military, where you spend this inordinate amount of time in extraordinary situations and in environments? Did you find it hard to interact with Joe Q civilian, if you will? Like you felt more comfortable around your teammates and fellow correctional officers, because let's face it, like I'll tell you from an outsider, having been co-located, like the conversations and what you guys are talking about and what you experience, right? Like it's very unsettling and very unique to your average everyday civilian that, stacks pants at the Banana Republic or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like has like this mundane job, like just what is normal for you guys on a Monday would just blow people's minds, right? Whether it's just what you said, the guy did what? He went up under the tower and started rubbing one out and toying with the tip, like just to get, for what reason to get, whatever. Well, you say that around a civilian that's a librarian or a third grade English teacher, they're like, wait, what is happening? Like
every one of us, especially guys that have worked the psych unit and stuff, have at some point said, if I could write a book, oh my God, I'd make millions. You know what I mean? It's something. And, when I was at school and everything and going through the coursework for the law enforcement degree and everything, that was touched on in multiple classes about, cops, law enforcement, whatever.
It's a natural.
The draw together and then exclude the outside. And there's some of it. I still have my friends from like high school and stuff that I do interact with and everything, but the majority of my outside social interaction is, through work. A lot of it. With Dane, fortunate enough, like with Dane's departure, we were, not just that level of work friend, but like friend where we're still, tight like butt cheeks, but, there is that gravitation to, especially when you work a unit like the X House and stuff, you become, you do become clicked up. You become a thing. And I remember, so as a supervisor in the X, I'm a big fan of, it sounds so just kind of, but, team building, but for us, team building was slamming Irish car bombs and drinking. And so it was, we had our monthly staff meetings, and it was the X House guys and guys that, did their daily, they put foot to ass, for, every day. And that was us. And, monthly staff meeting, we went to an establishment and we spent the evening doing what we do and hooting and hollering and blowing off steam. And it got, and other, comments were made like, oh, the X House guys, oh, they're a clique. Oh, they're, blah, blah, blah. They exclude people. Well, because we're this every day.
Yeah.
Like that. And if you guys were in the same boat, in the same situation, you would gravitate and do the same thing.
1,000%.
But,
it's not even malicious. It just is.
Yeah.
Right. It just is.
Yeah. It's just, that's what we're with each other every day, 8 hours in a volatile environment, and we're going to stick together and maintain that cohesiveness through shenanigans. Yeah, right. So,
and they were infamous. Yeah, those nights. What did you call them? The staff meetings.
Staff meetings.
Yeah, those were infamous, right?
Some of them were. The establishment we went to, owned by a correctional officer, also. I'll put a plug out for the Royal Palms. God bless them. They had a kind of a group of locals, not locals, but regulars that when we started doing this would kind of take exception to those noisy assholes at the end of the bar. At the Palms, you have the area, the cooler and stuff around, and then we always went the far end down there, but
try and be somewhat right,
and failed, spectacularly. And I remember Maria kind of sticking up for us one night, with those guys who would grumble about us.
She's the owner manager, right?
Yeah. And she stuck up for us, like, hey, those guys come in here, they've earned it, do stuff. And on the everyday that, you want no part of, and they're just blowing off steam and this and that, and, why don't you let it be? And then pretty soon they came to, I wouldn't say embrace, but if anything, it was like, oh, God damn it, they're here. And then they would call it an evening, or they would, send a shot down every now and again or something.
Yeah, it is. And, it is, to me, like, it is such a, underrated is not like underexposed position, right? It's got to be one of the hardest jobs, which is another reason why I'm so thankful that you agreed to come in and sit, right? Because I think people need to get educated and kind of exposed to what you and every other Department of Correction individual, like everyone always kind of wants to focus on the inmates. Like the inmates are, the focus of attention because it's like, it's extreme and exotic, and what kind of crazy shit are they going to do next, right? And like, what about the dudes and the gals that maintain this, this structure, right? That every day, are kind of keeping things, the train on the tracks, if that makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. Is that fair to say? It's like the inmates don't intrigue me at all. It's the correctional officers, like, bro, like what?
And you got the the movies and everything, and the focus is the inmates and their shenanigans and all that stuff. And I hate to and by God, the TikTok cringe or whatever, and some of this stuff. But when you talk about the job the correctional officer does, you see from the movies, I walk the gallery, I turn the key, this, that, and the other. But when it comes down to it, that first and foremost, that's what you're doing. You are keeping the bad guys where they need to be. You're also a mental health counselor. Hey man, can I, because they're around you every day, especially guys that work 5-day posts for, extended period of time. And there's, while it's still professional, there's a level of trust. Hey man, can I talk to you for a second, man? I'm having a real problem with this or whatever. So you become, you have the security aspect, you have a mental health and a counselor type aspect. You have a first responder, medical, especially something like the Dixon psych unit. You got a guy who just ran a razor blade up both of his wrists, and we are spraying everywhere, and you're the first guy there. Mm-hmm. So you have to take action. You can't just stand there and watch it happen, or a guy that hangs himself or whatever. You've got to do something. So now you're a medical first responder. Like I said, it sounds cliche, but the amount of you're a fireman. Right. At times, you get these guys start fires in their 8x10. It's you put on all of the hats.
That's a lot of hats.
You get, at the end of the day, you kind of get recognized for none of them.
Right. Unless you're,
you get high paid babysitter is what you get. So.
What did you find was the best way to kind of decompress and process all of that? I mean, that is an immense amount of bandwidth in taking up on a day-to-day basis, right? What was your go-to to kind of a healthy, productive, right? We all know the bad, the unhealthy, outlets, right? Like, what was one of the things that you found that helped you, that was the positive to work through those things?
The gym and the motorcycle. It's the gym and the motorcycle. You go and put a couple 100 pounds in your hands and get to work.
That's church, right?
That's where it's at. I started that. I started lifting when I was 20 down at Southern. And before, you used to, like a high school gym class, or you had your lifting section, or whatever, and I hated it. I despised it, and I was 155 pounds when I graduated high school.
Were you really?
Yeah, I was a soccer player, and I was all that. But I got to college, and I got to running around, in the frat and stuff, and we had a couple football players, but just looking around, it's like everybody's bigger than me. Everybody, and when you play around in the frats and stuff, you're going to have, you're pushing and shoving your little bar fights or this or that, you're going to have, dumb stuff. And it's like, but everybody is bigger than me. And I started training. There was one guy that was in the ROTC detachment with me, and we started, and then I like this. This is fun. This is good. And then I got back home here to Dixon on like summer breaks, and that's when I really got in with like Snooky Rutherford and all these guys at the Dixon Y, and they were power lifters. And I'm like, well, this is cool.
Sure.
This is I like this. And I went to my first powerlifting meet and watched all those guys compete, and I'm like, yes.
Oh, this is my thing. I'm into this.
This is it, and then that's, since I was 20, that's been it. It became life.
Well, and it became obviously life-saving because some of those inmates are pretty big, right?
Oh, dude. And, not to toot my horn or anything,
Toot
but
it.
yeah, beep, beep. How you carry yourself in the facility will make or break your day.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I'm not talking like just pure size and stuff, but even just confidence walking to an area.
Yeah, they respect it. I'm sure they respect
but
that.
when it comes down to like just the basic of basics, size gets respect in the joint. And so, yeah, by being bigger and everything, it helps. Whether you're an absolute cream puff, whatever, at least, if you have, it appears, yes. I'm not trying him. I'm going to try him. So yeah, it helps. But no, that was very therapeutic. That was the end of the day. Something was sideways. I didn't like it. I could go and we're going to tear shit up and
go take it out
get
on the
after
weights.
it. Yep.
Yeah. What would you say was the most positive experience that you took away from 26 plus years, inside? The most positive thing. I mean, was it personal growth? Was it managing, extraordinary circumstances? Was it, the bond that you got with your teammates? Like, what would you say was
huge part with the bond with the fellas? That incredible. I can't put to words the feeling, with those guys, that I made it fairly unscathed. I mean, I had my moments, but the biggest thing is I made it out to the other side without, losing something of mine or being severely, messed up or anything. So, in personal growth, I was able to accomplish, some things. I was able to make rank. I was able to I got to be part of things on a statewide level that a very, very, very tiny percentage. If you look at the entire scope of the Illinois Department of Corrections employee pool, that maybe 2% get to experience. I got to do things, and I think a lot of this is just from the work I did at Dixon. So yeah, that was a very fortunate thing and a very positive thing. Especially the end of my career couldn't have been any more positive.
If someone was going into corrections tomorrow, what's the number one thing? And go back to kind of your mentors, the gentleman that you listed off. What would be one, critical piece of advice that you're given? I'm Nick, the new guy. Tomorrow is my first day. And I come to you and I'm like, hey, Pete, you did almost 30 years, inside. How do I be successful?
For starters, and I think I've told a couple new guys this, shut your mouth and open your ears.
You're right.
The run of new guys that come in and they know everything right off the bat. And it's like, you don't know shit, dude. Shut up. Stop talking. We don't care what you have to say right now. We want you to listen and learn. Shut your mouth, open your ears. I've had some spectacular guys on ERT that were the masters of getting people in their place in that regard. But yeah, that is everybody's got their first piece of advice when they walk through the door.
Right.
And that would be mine. Don't talk. Listen. Take it in. And, when I mean take it in is watch people and, who are the guys that are making, taking the shortcuts, oh, well, hey, we're supposed to do 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, but we're going to do 1 and 3 because it's easier. Those are the guys you kind of want to, let's not model ourselves after. So, yeah, shut your mouth, open your ears, take it in, and watch and learn. That's the absolute biggest thing.
I think that's pretty sound advice in any walk, right?
Yeah, and you would be surprised how many don't abide by it. It's like, what?
It doesn't have to come out of a fortune cookie. Just shut your mouth.
Yeah. Now, my first words of advice that I got, very first, was You see that guy there? That's Flo. If you ever go into a cell with Flo, don't get hit by Flo. So Flo was an officer who could handle some business, but he would get a little wild, I guess, with with some of his stuff. It's like, just don't get hit by Flo because he hits hard. So yeah, my first words of advice, not like, hey, make sure you got good boots on, or hey, shut your mouth and open your ears. Mine was, if you're ever going to cell with Flo, don't get hit by Flo.
Oh my gosh.
Gotcha.
Yeah, duly noted. Duly noted. That's easy enough. I can remember that. Well, so if there was anything over the course of the show here, like, what would you want someone who's listening to this to know about the Department of Corrections and what officers go through in their day-to-day? If what would be your parting shots, right? That's something that people need to be aware of, that's happening behind closed doors, right? That most people don't know about, and they should. Does anything come to mind?
I got tired of the high paid babysitter mentality. Like I said, the amount of hats we have to put on during the course of a day doesn't equate to that. But the Department of Corrections, the penitentiary system, all that doesn't allow for people to see, what goes on. And I know that everything is always inmate driven and inmate rights. And yes, they do have rights, but the things they do when they're not there for not paying their overdue library books, as one of my majors used to say. They're there for a reason. And people seem to forget that they're there for a reason. And, I think the profession is highly underappreciated, highly underrated. And I know that, like, prior to me starting, I was that person. I was not impressed with.
Sure. Right. I can understand. Yeah. You don't know what you don't know, right?
Correct. And I will give you an example of why. I was working at, Rainer there on 311. And I saw a second shift officer every day at the gas station here in town going in. I'm picking up my whatever, and he's picking up his whatever. But I saw him, and every day it was dirty pants, filthy uniform, just stained, threadbare patch held on with 2 safety pins, greasy, unkempt hair. I mean, just... sorry to say it, Joe Shitbag. I mean, that's what's working in that place. That's the impression I got, was seeing that guy every day, was what I saw for the Illinois Department of Corrections. I don't want anything to do with that. I don't want, that was negatively impressive. It was. And then, so I had that preconceived notion on top of, the high paid babysitter stuff. And I want to be a cop. Cops are where it's at. But when I got in and I started working, that was an exception to the rule. That was a tiny, tiny, minuscule percentage of what the actual professionals I worked with, guys that their boots were polished, their uniforms were squared away. They carried themselves like they will thunderfuck you into next week because they had to, and I mean, these guys are impressive. This is impressive. That one guy that I saw that carried himself like ass tarnished the impression for. Right. And so multiply that by how many people see that every day at that gas station and whatever, So I see where that comes from. But once I got in and started doing the job, and I saw, these squared away dudes handling business and taking some of the, the worst people the state has to offer and working with them every day and making something of it, that became impressive. And then on a side note too, I also found that I liked the environment better than what I saw when I interned with a police department. Because, and they tell you in the classes and everything, for college, that policing is a huge percentage of community service and a small percentage of actually dealing with bad guys. And I found, especially as, 25 years old and, you think you're king shit of everything.
Yeah, you're hungry.
I want, and all that stuff. I found that I don't have to do community service type stuff.
I'll just get them on the back end.
I have bad guys all day, I know it sounds just overly macho and super tough guy and all that.
But not to a 25-year-old.
But no,
it makes
and
perfect
it was
sense.
I'm like, I don't have to help get a bat out of someone's porch at 2 a.m. or something. It was like, yeah, I'm doing, God bless everything, any cop, especially, I listen to with Mark Dallas and all the guys I know and that are cops, and nothing against them, but my mentality, my personality, I found evolved that I'm suited for this.
Yeah.
And that was just it. That was my personality. I am suited for this. My brother is a state trooper. He deals with the public. And it suits him. For me, I found that this suited me.
Well, and it's very, it's a mature thought process, even for a 25-year-old, to know, like, and I went through the same thing. I was like, man, the law enforcement, and even I thought about corrections for a while, right? And I was like, man, I was almost the opposite. I was like, I would kind of rather deal with the public and be a responder or try and prevent or what have you than, deal with what you guys deal with every day. Like if I had to choose the fork in the road, I would probably choose the law enforcement route, right? Like, and to have that honest conversation with yourself and know what you're suited for and what you're not, I think that, speaks volumes to kind of your maturity overall as a young adult,
And a lot of that came to light when my brother did get on with the state police, because I was trying out of college.
And because he's younger, correct?
Yes, he's 5 years younger. And from the time I left school, I was trying every year with the state police. And I would make it a step further each time, and I was getting close. But I was also now I'm working for the DOC. I'm making money. I'm moving on. So my brother gets on. My brother was a musician up in Chicago there and living in Chicago. And he's like, hey, I'm going to apply with Chicago PD. I'm like, who are you related to in Chicago PD? Well, what's that supposed to mean? Well, good luck. I mean, you're an outsider from Lee County, buttfuck Illinois.
Oh, was that a thing? I could see that being a thing.
I think it would be very difficult for someone who's not a Chicago person. And I can't speak from any real base of knowledge, but I just have a feeling getting on Chicago PD would be extremely difficult for a kid from Lee County. And I said, why don't you try state? Well, you think so? I go, yeah, try state police. If that's what you want to do, give state a shot. So he goes through the process and everything. He calls back. He's like, hey, yeah, I tested this, that, and the other. I think he said he was the second alternate. So if 2 people dropped out of the academy class, he would have got called up. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I'm like second alternate. If I remember how the story goes correctly. I said, you turn around and you file your application like tomorrow, reapply now. Well, what for? I go, if you made it that far on your first attempt, you're in on the next one. I mean, I go, just do it. And so, yeah, he got in on his second try.
That's good advice from Big Brother, right?
Yeah, I'm like, you'll be a fool. You made it that far in your first try? God dang it, go. So he makes it. And Susie sits down with me. We're talking about him making it. And she goes, you should try again. And I'm like, I got to thinking about it, and she goes, that's something you wanted to do. That was your main goal, was the state police coming out of college. And I'm like, now you start doing this. And she's like, well, why don't you try again? I go, well, one, do you want me gone for 27 weeks?
It's a long time.
Huh?
Yeah, it's a long time. Yeah.
And
it's a long academy.
And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah, the academy is 27 weeks, Monday through Friday. I'm gone 27 weeks. And I wish I could remember what year that was, if we had our daughter yet or not. But it was like, yeah, do you want me gone for 27 weeks? Well, maybe maybe that's not a good idea. I came to just like, you know what? I'm happy where I'm at. I don't want to start over again. Granted, I would make an extraordinary amount of money as a trooper, but I didn't want the starting over, and also that mentality of like, I like what I'm doing here. I can say that I didn't have a time where I didn't like my job. I hated dragging my ass off the couch to go.
Sure, that's natural, right?
Especially if I'd been out running around with your brother the night before. But, no, I don't think I really came across a time where I didn't like my job. So
and that's huge, right? That's huge.
It's nuts. There's a lot of aspects I didn't like about my job at times, but whatever. We keep doing what we got to do. We keep moving forward.
But yeah, if there's if the pros outweigh the cons and the the personal satisfaction, the mental stimulation, the complex problem solving, all of those things, like I've always said this, and I know I'm probably on a little bit of an island. Like, I don't care about the money if I'm not mentally and physically stimulated in some sort of way. The money's irrelevant. Like the boredom, I do not handle boredom well at all.
Dude.
Right? And so I don't have enough positive outlets, so I try and stay as busy as possible. And yeah, it could be to someone the worst job on the planet. But if it's mentally and physically stimulating and you're solving complex problems, why leave? Why leave? If you ask me.
Yep. Yeah, it was a good run. I don't mind it. It was a good run. It was.
Well, yeah. So almost, kind of closing it out. What were those last few weeks like? Like when your time is coming to an end, it had to be bittersweet, right? It had to be, or I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what was those parting days or weeks like?
Really fast. I had word that they were ending the TAs and they were filling the positions, and I unfortunately didn't get chosen for it. But I was ready to go quite some time ago. I mean, I was prepared to go. So, and like I told just about anybody, it's like, hey, I can't think of a better way to go. I mean, I'm leaving with a smile no matter what. But it was very fast. So I didn't really have time to, like bittersweet or anything like that. It was just like, hey, listen, we need to return you the joint on this day. We know you want to retire, so we're going to, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, thank you, and I got in, got my stuff. And
ceremony or like, how was it? Was it unceremonious or was it?
It was, I really didn't, it was very unceremonious. I was, because I was so ready. And I was good with it.
Yeah, I'm okay with it, right?
Yeah, I was. I didn't have a retirement party or anything like that. I didn't feel up for that. I didn't come in the door with a party.
Right.
I don't know. I was good just walking away.
Yeah, yep, I understand. I do. I totally understand. And I've left a couple different places, and there was a handful where I was like, a party got thrown or what have you, you know what I mean? And you get showered with accolades and compliments and gifts, and that's badass. It's fantastic. And by the time I left my last place, I was like, the best gift I can get is just not coming here again. Yeah. And that has nothing to do with the individuals that I was working with, because the individuals I was working with are the best dudes on the planet, hands down, right? It was just, I'm good. Just let me leave.
I'm at peace.
Yeah.
It was I'm at peace. But, I had lunch with the crew at the office in Springfield, and there's some gifts, and that bottle of bourbon, that's spectacular. You have to get a bottle. But it was just nice. It was bye. Thank you. It was
easy.
And, I need a ride home. I had to turn my state car in.
Who's giving me a ride?
And God bless, and Kyle from down there around the St. Louis area drove me all the way up to Dixon from Springfield, and he had to haul his ass all the way back down south. But nope, it was nice. It
probably
was just,
did it with a smile on his face.
Yeah, just all around, just great people that I got to finish with. So, yep,
dude, that is. That's fantastic, and I'm happy for you. Sincerely, congratulations on the retirement.
Thank you.
Has that fully settled in yet? Has it been 2 weeks, 3 weeks? How long has it been?
July 1st.
July 1st
was that. The first couple weeks just felt like vacation time.
Sure.
Like, hey, I'm on vacation. Hey, I don't have to do anything. It was kind of cool when that started setting in. I do still try and maintain some contact with some of the guys there at work, the
Sure.
ERT guys. Like just the other morning, we grabbed some breakfast pizzas at Casey's and went and threw down some slices before they went into the facility and stuff. And I like to keep doing stuff like that, and but just to let them know that I'm always, I'm still there for them. And
the mentorship doesn't end, right? Right? Is that fair to say? I mean,
I guess I these guys probably don't need a lot of mentor. Well, some of them might, but no, it's just I really, that's the level of respect and love that I have for those guys is, I don't want that to go away. I want to. So there's always going to be that. Hey, what are you guys doing this morning? Give me a good morning. I'll bring some pizza in.
Yeah, perfect.
Like that.
Well, I have an immense amount of respect for you as a person, as a professional. I always have. I want to thank you immensely, sincerely, for coming on. I think this information and these topics are incredibly interesting and intriguing, and we could probably talk. Make this a week-long series. Like I said, my questions are endless. Is there any parting shots at all you want to throw out? Anybody you want to give kudos to, or are we just ready to go to lunch?
I think some of the names I rattled off are, they've earned, some mention and stuff, but yeah, I suppose I better mention Susie because God knows, man, you did all that. You didn't say my name. And, the absolute largest support system I could possibly have, the strongest support system, the one who would sit there, what are you being a bitch about? Go do it. Yeah. Okay. There's, put your application in, or, just always, do it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Good teammate.
Yep. Yeah.
Fantastic teammate.
For sure.
Yep. Fantastic
For sure.
teammate.
And of course, my kids for putting up with my trying to run a house like a prison at times.
You have a spectacular family, bro. And that, we talk about this on a lot of the other episodes, is whether it's EMT or firefighters or military or corrections, like the families are going through so much of it too. And they're having to put up with whatever version of us, right?
Happens to come home that day.
Yeah, happens to come home that day. And they deserve all the credit in the world, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure, much like yourself at times, I'm not pleasant, to be around, depending on what's going on that day. And I'm sure none of those days in 26 plus years were a fucking party.
Right.
You know what I mean? So hats off to them.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you once again for coming in. This was fantastic, very informative, very educational. Thanks for putting up with my questions.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. It was one hell of a pleasant surprise to get that phone call to do this. So,
I really appreciate it, bro. Thank you very much. We'll sign off with that. Thanks, everybody. Stay mobile, and let's go get you some lunch, bro.
I dig it.
All right, dude. See you, everybody.